we're always gonna have biases. We're always gonna put someone in a box. It's not bad. I don't think it's bad. I think that's just who we are. That's our perception. Just make the box big enough so you can see growth.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 52 of the Andrew Deitch podcast. Hope everyone had a great Halloween. Hope you're recovering from your sugar coma as well. I chose to spend my Halloween at the gym and at Starbucks, making sure this episode gets out, so I didn't really do much, but this weekend was crazy. But this was another record-breaking week as far as the podcast goes. I'm very, 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 very proud and excited to announce that yesterday, on Halloween, the podcast had 1,032 listeners. That is the first time we've crossed over 1,000 in one day. So freaking exciting. Also, since it's the last day of the month, that means that the analytics for the month are finalized, and I am very excited to say that we gained 758 new subscribers over the last month, which is absolutely incredible. I really can't believe it. We are up to over 4,035 subscribers, so that really means a lot. And that also means that a lot of you are new to the podcast, and I'm super excited that you're here. So if this is your first time here, hi, my name's Andrew Deitch. What's up? My podcast might be a little different than other podcasts you've listened to in the past. But long story short, I try to have interesting and engaging conversations with the coolest and most fascinating people I know. There's no cutting or editing, and I want it to feel like you're just hanging out with us and listening in on our conversation. And today, my guest is my friend, Maxwell Bohling. And Max is a cisgendered straight white male, and he was recently named the final boss of the patriarchy. I'm just messing with you, Max. I feel like out of anybody who would I could troll about that joke, it would be Max. But no, seriously, Max is an NASM certified personal trainer. He's the owner of Maximum Training Systems, and he's the new personal training director at the Training Box, which is a gym in Roswell, Georgia, which just opened last Saturday. And Max is the real deal. He's freaking strong. I mean, this dude can deadlift like 500 pounds. And the best part is he's not just your typical meathead guy. You know, he's actually a really thoughtful guy who has a lot of interesting opinions and perspectives on a lot of current events and issues. And we talked about all kinds of stuff, including his training, his upbringing, what it was like, you know, growing up being homeschooled and overweight, how he dealt with bullying, how he made the transition into fitness, as well as all kinds of other fun stuff. So without any further delay, please give it up for my friend, Maxwell Bohling. Okay. We're live. That was the first time I actually did it for that long.
I thought that was so funny because it's like, what if both are we ready now? No, you go first.
Oh, hey guys. Hey. Hey there, everybody. How's it going?
What should I start off with? I don't know.
Welcome to the ASMR podcast.
Here we're gonna scratch some lottery tickets and see if we win. You won't know, but we will.
That's amazing. So, you've listened to the podcast before,
Yeah, a few times.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I obviously always appreciate when people have listened to it because, you know, it's I can understand why people haven't too, because sometimes it's like I'm meeting them for the first time or whatever, and they just haven't, or like I was mentioning a second ago, sometimes the very first guests, they had to just kind of trust me, and they couldn't have listened to anything, so they didn't know what to expect. But
yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I've really been to the video and audio podcast where they're filming themselves talking. So you have like H3H3, Powercast with Mark Bell, you know, Jordan Peterson.
Love Jordan Peterson.
Oh yeah, dude, Jordan Peterson's the best.
He's the man.
But other than that, like, if I can see a face, it really helps me like absorb what they're saying.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like if I find a random podcast, it's got to be something that I have some affiliation with. You know, common interests. You know, I may know the person. Things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so I mean, I think it's nice to kind of, I feel like it's a version of unplugging, because you're not really exposed to, you know, like we're Facebook, you're exposed to everyone at the same time. with the podcast, it's just two people having a conversation, and you really can just pick at what they're saying and kind of take it as your own.
Yeah, and I've almost heard it as kind of like letting your brain just like switch off and letting those people almost kind of like think for you in a way. Not in like a creepy way or like a brainwashy way, but just in a way where you kind of get to see how their mindset works. And anytime your brain starts listening to a story, it automatically kind of like shuts off and lets the story like take over, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same thing for me with podcasts, is a lot of times I feel like I'm just a fly on the wall in this conversation and just listening in on like some cool stuff. And people have commented how much they're like, dude, I barely know you in real life, but I feel like I know you now because I've like listened to so many of your conversations.
Exactly. And I feel like that's interesting with our relationship because, you know, I mean, we're friends, but like other than that, like we only know each other from acquaintances and even job opportunities. Other than that, we've just been social media friends, and we've just slowly but we haven't really hung out outside of that.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to see like who you are as an individual, especially how you express yourself on social media, where like you're very, you know, you're into it, you love communicating, you love bringing an audience in, and you love creating a community with that. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I definitely, there's some sort of weirdness to that too, because some people are just like, well, who is this guy to think he can just like create a community around him or
My
whatever.
life.
Yeah, and like your interests. But I think, because that is a weird thing, especially naming the podcast the Andrew Deitch podcast. Like, who's this guy? Douche. Like,
He's got a website after him? What the?
yeah, exactly. Like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'm going to be a part of the Andrew Deitch podcast community, you know. But mainly it's like I'm trying to curate the coolest people and the most interesting people and the people that I want to have a conversation with and I always enjoy hanging out with or talking with. And it's like, I want to say these conversations would happen kind of the same way even if there wasn't audio involved. Obviously, there's a little bit of difference, but I would say that difference is in a positive way, not that I'm censoring myself, you know?
Yeah.
Because that was the biggest thing. We were kind of talking a second ago about like swearing on the podcast or whatever, but you know, I don't want that to be a hindrance to how I would normally communicate.
Well, it's a form of expression. You know, if you need a certain word to describe something and if shit is the word that you need, go ahead and say it. I mean, depending on if it offends anyone, that's on them.
Exactly.
You didn't tell them, hey, get pissed off when I say this. You
exactly.
know, they take it in for themselves. I mean, what I kind of like about the podcast is like, you know, I feel like there's a real need in society where they're like kind of craving that connection, craving human interaction. And yeah, I mean, podcasts and videos are a substitute, but you know, you need the real thing. But the word that comes to my mind is like the word sonder, which is like every living person has a complex, independent life just as you and I do. And it's really hard to grasp that because if you take all the thoughts in your head and how you think and how you process, it's super complex. And then take that to someone else, and even someone you hate or even someone you don't know, they are processing as either like a higher level or a lower level or just any level, just as complex as you are. And it's just kind of like mind blowing.
Yeah, it is crazy to think about that because, you know, I've heard the argument of, oh, well, maybe we're living in a simulation or whatever.
Right.
And it is weird because we almost are, even if we're not living in like this type of simulation that, you know, maybe Elon Musk is proposing where we've somehow gotten ourselves to a technological point where we put somehow our brains in this simulation and we're just experiencing something that's not real, but a simulation in the way that, you know, your brain has all these sensory inputs that we kind of just call life. And, you know, I'm seeing you as Max, but, you know, my brain is interpreting you as like this physical thing. But, you know, if you really kind of break it down, it's like my brain doesn't really know that you're actually there. It's just my eyes are telling it that you're there, and you can get it down to such a weird level.
So you know what's cool about that?
So true.
Have you know Jim Carrey?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jim Carrey is like losing his mind in a good way because it's like he's felt. I don't know if this is a character he's playing as, but he's been going off the record and he's been saying that like I'm not Jim Carrey. I'm just a product playing as Jim Carrey. You know, I am just merely thoughts and ideas and expressions that form this idea as Jim Carrey. And call Jim Carrey. It's like, I'm called Maxwell Bohling. But I could easily just reset myself, change my name. Though I have the memories of Maxwell Bohling, I have to, which is crazy because we are built on our past. We are built on our experiences, our perceptions, how we saw things for the first time, that first impression. Those define us and those help us who we are. And that's how we're slowly being molded to something different. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I always go back like, what if things were slightly different? Like a parallel universe is like, what if I met the Maxwell Bohling who like never lifted weights, or the Maxwell Bohling who was like a female or something? It's like these small little changes, like just but out of control and just really just expand on that idea.
Yeah, I think that's why we're so fascinated with movies like that, because we always think about, what if I would have never met this person? Or what if I would have, instead of, stopping at that red light, what if I would have ran it and gotten to work on time? Or what if I would, just like all those little weird things that add up and then just become your life.
But I think why we do that is because we're always striving for the better outcome. And if we're unsure with our actions, like let's say, like, what if I was late for work, but I ran the red light? I have the consequences of breaking the law, getting pulled over, which would waste more time than waiting at the red light. So you analyze the situation, but the goal is like, I want the best outcome. I want to perform at the highest level. What am I willing to do to get that, whether it's rewarding or not?
Very true. Because I've even had that thought before, because I stopped at a red light and missed, and I was late for work, and it was like my third strike or whatever, and I was like, God damn it, if I would have just ran that. So it was a really long red light, and I was only 1 minute late. I was like, if I would have ran the red light,
right,
I would have been fine. And I, like, after I contemplated, I did stop, and I watched, and like, no one was going to hit me. I could have easily done it. There wasn't cops around. I'm just like, Gah! But, then I also have to think, well, what if instead of that choice of between running and not running the red light, what if it was the choice of waking up 1 minute earlier and not waking up 1 minute and getting that one extra minute of sleep or
just
whatever?
Just get your priorities straight, Andrew.
Exactly.
God, man.
And so, I think it all boils down to everyone, like you said, everyone is their own thing and everyone has their own experience, but it's also all about this, whether you want to call it an illusion or not, of choice, because sometimes people say, well, we don't really have free will because all of these things that have added up, we can predict what you're going to do. But I like to think that we do have, at a basic level, free will. I could choose to pick my nose right now or put my hand on my knee or whatever, and my choice of doing that has a perception on you. You could think, oh my gosh, what a weird guy, he's picking his nose right in front of me. Or you could think, what a respectable man, he has his hands on his knees and blah, blah. It's just very, very odd how we have these tiny little choices every millisecond of every day. We could choose to do something versus something else. And
well, I mean, that goes on, when you think about your career and like your job path, you may not be doing what you want to do, but sometimes you just need to stick with it. I was explaining to you before, I'm a personal trainer now, and I have my own facility, I have equipment, I have clients. But I probably would never had that opportunity if I quitted my job a week early, like a month early. Since I stayed with my job throughout the whole time, that connected me with more people, and that created more opportunities, because each individual is a new opportunity, regardless if you know them or not. And so, I mean, sticking with the job that you may not like, may be the best thing for you. It teaches you perseverance, it teaches you discipline. And really just to work in a bad situation, that's definitely what I learned from coming to that. But it's crazy because like you could leave now, go to the store, bump into someone. He could be, the CEO of whatever, and you say, "Oh, I do this podcast. Can I interview you?" And you sit down with them, and then that creates more opportunities. So,
but the other crazy thing to think about is, what if 5-6 months ago, I had decided not to start the podcast and let it go, and I run into that guy, and I'm sitting there thinking, I just met this guy, I knew him back in the day, now he's the CEO guy and all this stuff, and like, what am I doing with my life, or whatever. And it is weird how like those two choices could collide, in the sense that like I've made this choice to create something,
right,
and now I can, do something with that or whatever. And a lot of people don't end up making those choices, and they would call something like that, oh, that was so lucky that you ran into that guy and happened to get him on the podcast, and now because he already had this huge audience, it's so successful. And it's like, well, you could call it lucky, but you also could call it a lot of hard fucking work of me actually building up this podcast over the past 6 months.
Exactly. And sometimes I think people call it luck because they don't want to acknowledge the fact that you have the possibility to achieve this. You just have to get up and do it. And that intimidates some people. And I think fear is the biggest issue that they hate failure. They hate separation. They hate these things that belittle them, even if they're belittling themselves. And it's a scary situation. When I was a personal trainer and I started out, I only felt comfortable talking about my business and trying to get more business is if I was in a comfortable situation or if we were already talking about it. I couldn't go up randomly to someone and say, "Excuse me, sir, I noticed that you have this going on with your body. Do you need help?" I didn't have that confidence because I was afraid they were going to be like, "No, leave me alone. You're a freak. Why are you looking at my body?" And then that makes me like, wow, I must be a horrible trainer because he didn't accept me. So it really adds into the fact that, you just need to go out and do it. And, don't let your things that you do externally identify you as a person. Let your identity be whole within yourself and let everything else you do be an expression of that. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're a genuinely good guy. And from what I met, you want to build a community. You love talking to people. You're a very people person, very personal. And in that, it's because that's who you are. So let everything you do, whether it's the podcast, working out, how you deal, even cars, let that be a personification of who you are as a person, not the other way around, because then it controls you.
Exactly. That's one of the biggest things I learned about myself when I started traveling. Because when you go to a new place, I found myself in Italy for the first time. That was the first time I went out of the country.
That's a cool place to find yourself.
Yeah, and I was out of the country. I didn't travel with anyone else. I was by myself. I was an au pair. I don't know if I've told you about this. I don't know if you know about this, but I was an au pair, which is like a nanny for this family.
Yeah, you told me.
So, this family doesn't know who I am. I mean, they Skyped with me. We emailed back and forth, figuring out this whole setup and all this stuff. So they know kind of who I am. They probably Facebook stalked me. They were lawyers, so I'm sure they did a little bit of background research on who I was and stuff.
Right.
But besides that, they don't know my personality. They don't really know me. They might know a couple of my interests. They might know that I'm polite or whatever, but they don't know me.
Right.
And so when you're sitting there in a foreign country and your family's not around, your friends aren't around, no one knows who you are, no one cares who you are, you can be whoever the hell you want. And that's when you can feel like sometimes people have a crisis. They're like, well, who, without my cars, without my possessions, without my clothes, without, because that's another thing. You have a suitcase of a few clothes. You can't bring everything with you. You have a few pairs of shoes. You can only bring a few with you, all that kind of stuff. And sometimes people put their identity in that kind of stuff. Like, oh, well, my identity's in my Instagram and I have to have a different outfit every single day and that's what I do.
Right.
But is that really you, or is that what you're doing right now? And that just happens to be your circumstance. And some people are just they want to put everyone in a box, and they want to even put themselves in a box. I'm a Republican, and so I subscribe to this. And even though I don't necessarily agree with this, I'm going to toe party lines because I'm a Republican. And it's easier for me to just do that rather than stand up for what I believe in or whatever. I'm just going to follow what these guys are saying in this regard or whatever.
Well, it's an issue that we're having today. It's collectivism. It's it's where people just have to, you'll have to think the same. You can't say this, you can't say that. If you think like this, you're a tyrant, you're an enemy, you are labeled as the worst people ever existed. And it's almost like I'll put you in fear and scare you into my group. Because if you're anything different, you're better off dead. And, I think that's what we're struggling with. People are just trying to, the whole presidential campaign with, Trump and Hillary and everyone like that, I think people really were like, what do I actually believe in? Because you have two people here who are insane running to rule the country. Where do I stand in all this chaos? So I really think people really just felt like maybe some people fell off the horse, some people figured out who they were and this ideology. But in the state of fear, you either, which was the presidency, you either join a group or you have your own way. or you really just, you have to, it's really survival of the fittest. And a lot of people are joining these groups because they feel empowered. And usually sometimes that feel of empowerment is due because you don't feel powerful by yourself. You don't feel powerful alone. And that's an issue.
That's very true, man. I definitely do want to like talk more about politics and all this kind of stuff because both of us are really interested in that stuff. And I think that having conversations like this are super important because people don't hear enough of I guess, alternative approach, because in the media and what you're seeing online and seeing on, on those videos that get thrown around everywhere, a lot of times they're masked by this like agenda, like I was just talking about. And I think that having like an open, more conversation like this is super important. But for a minute, I do want to go back kind of, because obviously you've listened to the podcast. In the beginning, I kind of intro who my guests are and stuff like that. And I say, oh, this is Max, he's a trainer, blah, blah, blah. But I do want to go back because I want you to kind of, people to know who you are a little bit.
Who's this mystery man?
Yeah, know your story and all that, because that's important. And I always say my philosophy behind why I like to do this is because kind of like what we were just saying, I view you as this person, I put you in this box, our brain wants to compartmentalize you into this. I could think, oh, this is Max, he's a meathead, or oh, this is Max, he's into fitness, or oh, this is Max, he's a hardcore righty, or oh, this is Max, he's a hardcore lefty, or whatever, depending on what I see on Facebook.
Right.
And but Max is Max, and also Max 20 years ago is a completely different Max than Max of today. So take us back, give us the brief life story, and also kind of how you got to where you are and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I guess so.
Were you born in Georgia?
Yeah, I was. Born and raised.
Cool.
I'm a Georgia peach. So I was born and raised and lived in Decatur at first. And I have 3 brothers.
Younger?
I have 2 younger, 1 older.
Okay.
So I'm like that middle-ish. Mom, Pa, so we... Mom was stay at home. Dad was a chef. He was pretty high up there in regards to like top chef in Atlanta. So, food was a pretty big thing in my family.
That's cool.
Really normal childhood. I really can't complain,
Public school?
Actually, so private school in elementary. So I went to In-Town Community School.
Is that where you met Graham?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. Because his dad was like a pastor there, I think.
He was the assistant pastor. He wasn't the senior pastor. He was, but
cool. Hi, Graham.
Hey, Graham.
He's probably listening to this.
Oh my gosh, the memories I have with Graham are crazy. Because him and I, we connected because he had 5 brothers. I had 3, so all my brothers would. We would all go to his house and just play, and he had this giant backyard, and we would just play airsoft, play GameCube, and really just it was really good time. Pokemon was huge at that time. But anyway, yes.
Still is, bro. What are you talking about, bro?
Oh, dude, man, Pokemon Go.
Pokemon is life, bro. There's a Snorlax behind you, bro.
I still watch car opening videos where they take a box or like a deck and they open it and they say, oh, I got this, and they try to find the rare. It's just like, I don't know what it is, but I just love watching that because it's so nostalgic.
Yeah.
You get a pack, you open it, and you're just like, do I get the Charizard? Oh shit, Bulbasaur.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I think humans love unboxing videos.
Well, I think they love the search, and they love the pursuit, and they love
the mystery.
Exactly, and then the treasure at the end, the goal.
Yeah, it is like a mini story. It's like the beginning, you've got this box, it's all sealed up, and you don't know what's inside, and then the climax of opening it, and then the resolution of like, this is what it is.
Well, yeah, and then so you take a chance. You spend something that you've worked for. I mean, as a kid, your parents usually did it, but you spend money, you take a chance. You get that adrenaline's pumping, you get that emotion. I think this is a little too much for.
But it's almost kind of like you're spending it because if you were a bad kid, your parents might not give. So it's almost like you've been a good boy
through your efforts.
Yeah, through your efforts, and you're not just gonna get one all the time. So even though your parents are buying it, it's still kind of like this doesn't come around all the time. So you got to cherish it.
Right, and then like the reward at the end. If you get a good card, your friends are gonna be jealous. You're gonna have that sense of power and that entitlement. That I got the holographic Machamp.
What?
I feel like I had to, like, the fact that I had to figure out which was it Machoke or Machamp. I'm like, God, I'm getting old. But yeah, so normal childhood. Though, so interesting. I was overweight.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures.
Oh yeah, man, rocking it.
Little chubster.
Yeah, a little bottle of love. But
Did you ever get like bullied because of that or anything?
I mean, so what I did is, and this carried with me for a while, and it wasn't healthy. I used my weight as a sense of humor. So
a lot of people do that.
Yeah, so I would I would wear a pant size 1 too small, and then with the button, I could bust my button with my stomach, and people would think it was hilarious. So I could
That
make,
is funny.
I could sit down and turn in. I can make my stomach like I can fold the fat in and make it talk. Like, yeah, dude, I got creative. I mean, the worst I would do
it's
is
like a defense mechanism, though, because humor.
It's to deter people away from making fun of me. They can laugh with me.
Yeah, and you already the humor part of like, haha, this kid's fat is kind of like almost the humor in pointing it out. But if you're already like obviously pointing that out and making it something funny, they don't have any like basis of like pointing it out because it's already an obvious thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't like, I had friends, I had a lot of friends in elementary school, so it didn't like separate me from, having connections. But, I did personally, I don't think you realize it when you're young, but it did, I didn't like it. Like I even do things where like I would eat like 8 or 9 slices of pizza at pool parties and then throw up, and then like everyone would be like, oh, Max threw up, crazy. And it's like, haha, yeah, it's funny. But you would just try. It's like, if you think like, wow, like I was like, when I thought about it, I was like, where were the parents?
Yeah,
It's like,
but also, you get told who you are by your peers, and so your peers are like, oh, Max is crazy, he always eats so much pizza.
like he can eat so much food,
and
look at him.
And then you think, like, you're like, oh yeah, you're right, I do eat a lot, that's who I am, I'm the guy that eats a lot.
And being in a household where your father's a chef, it's almost just like, my parents really didn't think of it as a concern. They were just like, he just likes to eat. And I did like to eat. I don't remember if there was any connection to, any family issues or anything, but I think it was the idea that if I enjoyed the food that my parents cooked, it made them happy. So I think it might have been that. But, there's so many layers to it.
Yeah.
Can't really
were your parents physically fit, or were they kind of overweight, or?
My dad was athletic in high school, so he carried that athleticism with him. My mom, jogged, typical mom stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's not very typical for parents of 4 kids to be like jacked, because that takes a really very intentional lifestyle. And when you've got kids, when you've got 4 kids and you're a full-time job and full-time mom, it's hard to stay in peak physical condition. And there's a reason why everyone talks about the dad bod and all this stuff, because it just happens.
It does, and you just kind of, you can't be like, he's lazy. No, I mean, he's probably got a ton of priorities he's working on. But yeah, it was definitely difficult. I mean, we would always go and do stuff. We'd go to the park, we'd go biking, so it's not like we were couch potatoes.
Yeah, you said you were playing airsoft, playing in the backyard.
Yeah, so I was always out with friends, so I mean, I did get that video game bug, and I love games, still do today, and so that's what slowed me down.
Do you think but you said you were kind of overeating. Do you think it was that, like just the calories in were just way more than the calories being?
So interesting enough, so after elementary school, my parents couldn't afford it anymore. Because you got four sons all going to the same school. It's expensive. So my parents were like, you're going to do public school now. And so we lived in Decatur, and at that time it wasn't the best place. So I went to Shamrock Middle School. And
sounds lucky.
Yeah, so I only lasted for like 2 weeks, and then I got out because I just couldn't handle it was a lot to keep up with. I wasn't used to the in and out, get to school, get to class. I was used to one class, all the subjects taken care of. But then I was like, Mom, I can't do this anymore. And then, then I got homeschooled. And so that's when the weight started adding up, because I wasn't going anywhere. I just stayed home, did school, and played games. And so I really gained, most weight I gained was in middle school.
So were you homeschooled throughout middle school?
Yeah.
Wow.
All the way through 8th grade.
It's weird. I've actually had a handful of people that were homeschooled on the podcast.
It's great. Though I mean, when you do it wrong, I lost all my social skills. Yeah. Like the will to connect with others was very minimal. So when I got to high school, it was awful. Like oh God. We'll get to that later. But it was just like you just get in this shell, and any ideas or any insecurities that you carried with you, you really lean to yourself, and you really just kind of like, oh, this is who I am, you know, people don't like me because of my weight, blah, blah, blah. And you just kind of like, and then no one can tell you otherwise. So you just kind of stick with it, and then it carries you, and then it stays with you for a while. And it takes a while for you to just strip that off, you know, gain that, you know, that encouragement, that confidence back.
Yeah. For me, it was always being told that I was super small, which is weird because you find your identity. Like, I was really just super short. And like, I'm not the tallest guy by any means right now, but like, I'm not super short, you know, like compared to how short I was. Because back in the day, I was really short. The other thing was I was really young for my grade.
Okay.
So like whereas some of these kids in my grade were like held back, so they're like a full year older than me. And a full year for kids is a lot of growth physically.
Oh yeah.
And so like physically, I was a lot more immature than some of my peers. And so like, you know, just the constant like being, not always being picked last for sports and stuff, but it was like I wasn't ever picked first, or you know, like things like that.
It affected your connection with other people.
Yeah, and then like also, you know, typically girls hit puberty earlier than guys, so girls actually end up shooting up taller than you. So not only were all my friends taller than me, but all the girls were too. So it was just like, oh, Andrew's so short, haha. And like, I didn't think it was like a, you know, oh, I'm so small, but it was just like part of my identity. I was just short. You know,
I mean, what's interesting with that is though, you had a reference of like people around you experiencing their life, experiencing puberty, experiencing, you know, you had reference points as were like, okay, well, he's experiencing that. I might experience that later, or she's going through that. So that's what happens. You know, being in homeschool, especially if you're not going out, you're not doing extra stuff, you really are I'm just exposed to my brothers, my family, and sometimes my friends from time to time. So you don't get that daily exposure to other people's lives. And so you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, like girls, no idea. Like, like people say middle school is when you start getting feelings and you start experimenting, whatever. Like I had zero, nothing. And so getting into high school was chaos. It was crazy. You were just like, these people exist? What?
Yeah, you're like, these people are like having sex? What is that?
Peepees and vaginas? What? Yeah, it was weird. It was just like, it was, you know, a culture shock, you know, and being in a Christian home too, you know, you're just kind of like, wow, y'all are going to hell. You know, but other than that, it's just like, you know, but you get comfortable and then you realize, okay, you know, they ain't satanic. They're just normal people. And you're like, wow, crazy.
Yeah. And the other thing, because I can relate to this. I was homeschooled until 4th grade, and then I went to a private school, very small private school with Graham until 8th grade. So so going to public school was a big change for me as well.
Was your private school at the?
Yeah, I was at Perimeter.
I would go there. I would go there all the time with
the bricks.
Yeah, just not the youth part, but the actual
the church
service. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
With a person named Zach Ryder.
Name sounds really familiar.
Yeah, he's at Georgia Southern right now. I think he's almost done. But yeah, he went to in town, and me and him stayed friends for a while. Gotcha. We've fallen off, but yeah, he went to that church. Him and his family went to that church.
Nice. Yeah, so it was definitely like, oh, you know, I can relate to that in a big way, because when I was talking about this actually, I think on the last podcast with my brother, we were kind of talking about how like when you make that transition from middle school to high school, especially in like a Christian environment, and then you go to this public school, it's
the rest of the world.
The rest of the world. You know, you go into that thinking like, well, I'll never be a part of that. Kind of like what the Bible actually talks about, being in the world but not of the world, or whatever, that kind of thing.
Right.
You're taught like, okay, cool, I'm going to be in this environment, but you know, I need to stay strong and not conform and blah blah blah.
Well, for me, like in high school, my like even my virginity was like a pride symbol. It was like, I'm not having sex. You lost your virginity. What are you, weak? Or like, I'm not doing this. It's like you just have low morale. You know, it didn't encourage or it didn't empower anyone around me, but it was merely an idea. It was like, I'm just kind of better than them because I have this concept in my head that I was taught. But then reality hits in, and then you lose your virginity, and then you're just like, oh shit, that's actually really hard to keep. Yeah, it was
it's a slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope, no pun intended. But it was, you know, it's being exposed to other life and other cultures and other people is humbling. You know, it's a humble experience because it's not about you. It's about it's really, you know, I've come to learn it's about the other person now. You know, once I kind of figure out who I was as an individual, I was like, I'm taken care of. Now I can go out, serve other people, take care of them, and just help them work out what they're going through. And hopefully through my path and what I've experienced through life, that will help them too. And I think that's what's really cool about your podcast is because you talk to people and they talk about their lives and their struggles and what they've gone through and how they got out of them. And someone who's listening may be going through that same thing. And they're like, wow, they did it that way? Maybe I should try that, and it works.
Yeah, because it's not very common that you kind of just start talking about yourself for extended periods of time and going back and saying, well, you know, when I got to high school, I was thinking this or whatever. You might, in a casual conversation, say like, yeah, I was blah, blah, blah. But you might not go into detail about like how you were thinking. You're so right about the podcast because you get to like jump inside of someone's brain. And I always try to ask, you know, stuff like, you know, what were you thinking in that point in time? So then you get that extra, you know, what was going on in the brain,
insight.
The insight, exactly, because that's what people don't get to hear most of the time.
Well, it's hard to see what's going on when you're in the moment. You know, you just I just need to experience it and we'll move on. But when you step back and you kind of just say, okay, what was happening at that moment and that time, you're like, oh, that's why that happened. That's why I felt like that. You know, that's why I got this outcome. And you're like, okay, well, that's solved. You know, maybe someone down the line, maybe a younger listener who's about to hit high school or is in high school. And you're like, you know, I'm in that same situation. Let me go ahead and try that out and, you know, breathe, step back, look at the situation, analyze and assess and try to find a solution.
Exactly.
Okay, I guess to go back. So high school was okay, you know. I got more comfortable, started dating.
Were you still overweight?
Yeah. Second, sophomore. Oh, here's the thing. I had a growth spurt like sophomore year, and I ended up being like, I'm like 6'1", 6'1" on a good day. And you know, so I had a growth spurt, but you know, I was skinny in the eyes of the world, but I still felt fat. And that was the issue. You know, I still felt fat. I still felt that my appearance was the reason why, you know, especially girls, like now that you're in a world where there's like beautiful women around you, you're just like, why aren't they like, how do I connect with them? How do I get closer to them? You know, and then you try to like, well, I'm not getting closer to them, so there must be an issue. And then you assume and you go to the thing you know the best, like, well, it's my weight or it's my social status in school or this and that. When in general is like, man, I just had a shitty personality that I needed to work on. But you know,
But people don't want to admit that.
They don't want to admit that I'm the problem. And a lot of people, they don't want to admit that they're the problem.
Exactly.
Like, you're the reason you're in this situation. You're the reason why you're not getting exactly what you want. So you either need to get up and grow up and get it done, or continue being the victim of your own world. But yeah, so you know, I had a growth spurt. I became really skinny junior year. And then senior year, I was super skinny because I just wasn't eating. Not because of like, you know, I started to go anorexic or anything like that. I just didn't eat. You know, I was eating enough. Coffee came into my life and that caffeine just suppressed my hunger. And I was just doing stuff and just was so busy I didn't eat. So I just got really skinny. I was probably down 160 something pounds. But yeah, so going through high school.
It might not sound like very little, but at that height, that's pretty.
Yeah, I was pretty skinny
compared to where you were at before, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, and I was probably like 180, 190 at like 5'11".
Wow,
that was like the worst.
20 pounds is 20 pounds.
Exactly. So, I mean, other than high school, I mean, we can get into more personal stuff.
Yeah, so like so when did you kind of get into fitness and stuff? Because that's obviously one of the biggest things.
So I did football freshman year. Sucked really bad. I kind of did it because I thought my dad did it in high school, so I was like, oh, I need to kind of do what he did.
Was that the first time you ever like lifted weights?
Sort of. I don't really remember lifting weights in football.
Huh.
And then sophomore year, I did wrestling, messed up my lower back, and then I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. That was fun. And then I did a tournament called Naga, which is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I placed third in my weight class. But the thing is, there was only like four people. And once you get in a fight, and if it's your first fight, you black out and you forget what you're doing. So I basically just squeezed this guy until he tapped. So I really didn't like do anything impressive. And then had a period where I stopped. And then senior year was like, oh, what am I gonna do with my life? I kind of have to figure this out. Because I really didn't like school. I didn't really want a desk job. So I was just like, I want to do something courageous and something great. And that's the thing with my life. Like ever since I was little, I've always wanted to be a superhero. I've always wanted to be beyond the human nature. You know, I've always wanted to have like, you know, go beyond human capabilities. Though, you know, you can't do that. So I was like, you know, why as well just do something like that. And so I wanted to become a pararescueman in the Air Force. So, and that's when I started training. So I was running. I would run to the gym, work out, and then run back.
Wow.
And I did that 3 or 4 times a week. And so, but I was doing like curls and pressing, and I don't think I did legs. I did core.
Well, at least you were running, so it wasn't like you were just ignoring the legs.
Right, exactly. So,
but not building them.
I wasn't. When I look back, I wasn't really doing anything. I was just kind of pressing and moving, and I wasn't even growing because I wasn't even eating enough.
Yeah. But one thing that like our friend Jamie said to me one time, he, you know, because we were kind of talking about stuff, and he was like, because I was like, how do I optimize, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, dude, to be honest, like the fact that you're just in the gym, like trying stuff and moving around and like lifting things is better than just like not trying at all anyways, you know? Like don't be discouraged that you're not growing or that you're not like actually maybe doing the right stuff, but like be encouraged by the fact that you're getting comfortable in the gym.
Exactly.
You're dedicating hours of your week to doing this. It's a positive, it's more of like a positive thing for your mindset and just like staying active rather than like getting huge and
right.
stuff.
And I mean, you're going to be more likely to learn more about fitness in the gym than you are at home. So if you need to be surrounded by people who, if you want something, whether it regards to like lifting weights and getting bigger and stronger, you need to surround yourself with people who are either going for the same thing or are already there. So yeah, it definitely, you know, it helped. But you know, then, and it's like, okay, then I'm working out, and it's like, okay, well, I have to apply for college. So I'm a horrible test taker. I made like a 1200, like with 3 different SATs, all combined together. I made like a 1200, and I mean that's garbage. I mean I couldn't even use that to go into school. So I had the ACT, and I made like a 16 or a 19. I really don't know. And I applied for Valdosta State University, got denied, and then I increased my test score, and then I got accepted the second time. So. And then I joined the Air Force program there. And then So that was
the main reason for going to Valdosta is they had an Air Force program?
Yeah, and I was majoring in exercise physiology, and I was going to be a, what do they call it? It's like a captain. It's the officer version of a pararescueman. Okay. So I was going to jump out of helicopters, shoot people, you know, kill the bad guys, all that cool stuff. And then, you know, you go to school, and then, you know, that's when I started really getting into fitness because I had other people who were working out. You know, I had a friend named Mason Elmore, and he was super into working out, and he was pretty big when I first saw him. And then he just started telling me all this stuff, and then I'm like, wow. And then I started going online and on YouTube, and I started watching videos, and that's just generally all I cared about. You know, I tried to maintain school, but I just was falling in love with fitness even more. But yeah, college was a very weird time for me. It was just kind of like, I didn't know. That was like, since I was on my own, I didn't have any familiarity. I had to recreate that. So what did I do? So I just like tried to make some friends, dated a little bit here and there. You know, I had a girlfriend for a while that we were pretty serious, but that fell through. But yeah, college was just gotten really depressing, and fitness was my escape. So if I was not liking where I was in life, I'd go work out. And I would just keep doing that, and to a point where my school was being neglected, but I was making all types of gains. And you and I were in a similar situation because at the end of that year, we had, is it not Vima? I was gonna say Venmo.
I wish I got into Venmo. They're killing it.
Yeah, I love Venmo. But yeah, we were
working for Venmo. No,
making bank. But yeah, Vima. Which that was weird. That, I mean, it was kind of cool. Like, oh man, I'm dropping out of high school. I'm going to start my own business selling these drinks.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Yeah, for people that are listening, I've talked about this a few times, But Vimo is basically this network marketing company that I was a part of, where you're trying to basically, it's kind of like Amway or Mary Kay or one of these companies where people generally classify it as like a pyramid scheme type deal,
right?
Where you're trying to sell products, and then whatever you sell, you get a little bit of commission of. But then the real sweet part of the deal is like you bring other people into the company, and then you get a percentage of like whatever they're selling. So then you are encouraging your people in your downline, is what they call it, to like sell more. Mm-hmm. And then the pipe dream of it all is to recruit so many people into the business, and they recruit so many people into their business that you're at the top of this little pyramid thing that you've created, and everyone else is selling stuff while you're on a beach in Tahiti or something like that.
Oh man, so easy.
Yep, it's just so easy. Just put in 2 years of hard work into this thing, man, and we're gonna be millionaires, bro.
And if you don't get it right, you're just not working hard enough, man.
Just not working hard enough, bro.
It's not the system, dude. It's not even the drink, dude. It's you. But yeah, I remember just doing that, and it was Graham Hooper was in there too.
Yeah.
And then
how did you? So Graham introduced you to it, right? That's how it like actually started. Because I had Graham.
Yeah. So Graham invited me, and I was like, oh, cool. Like Graham and I haven't talked in a while. We can reconnect. And then it brought me in, and then met you, and then two brothers. I forget their name.
Brett and Blake.
Yes. And then they were in it. And we were just, trying to work it out. And I remember just, and then we were on a phone conference with some guy who was pretty up there. And then I think you guys went to Vegas.
Yeah, I went to Vegas twice with that company. It was pretty gnarly.
Yeah, and then I just kind of had to sit down and look and like, well, before I even go, I have to like, do I even like the product? And I was just like, and for the little nutrition knowledge I had, I knew that it wasn't that great of a product and it was overpriced. And I think Graham was trying to convince me. It's like, oh, look at the protein powder, look at this. And I was like, this is kind of garbage, dude. This is like...
Protein powder was nothing special.
Yeah, it was like 15 grams and the thing was like $70 or something. I'm just like, bro, this is...
Yeah. It definitely, like some of the things, it depended on what you're trying to use it for. Like the Vima drink itself was like more of a liquid vitamin thing. And so like we were trying to pitch it as, this health thing, but then it was like these college kids like don't care. So then they had an energy drink and it's like, yo dude, use it as a mixer, bro, and like all this stuff like that. And it's just like,
no hangovers, man.
Yeah, it was just weird. It was just a really strange time. But I would not, I've said this before, that was like the first time where I ever like took charge and like tried to do something for myself with my life and like really changed my whole mindset, and I wouldn't trade that time is what I'm trying to say. Like
you should never say I
don't regret it.
There should be no regrets in anything you do because it's not, we don't really fail, we just learn. So because you and I both dropped out of school. So what was going through your mind during that process of like, I can't do this anymore, I gotta move on. You were unsure of the future. What was going through your head? Because I was scared as hell.
Yeah, I was definitely a little bit scared. I was probably a little too confident in myself too, because the thing that was happening was I was basically neglecting my classes, kind of like you were with fitness. It was like I was viewing school as like this thing that just my parents kind of wanted me to do, and I wasn't really exactly sure why I was there. Yeah, I was just like, growing up, I was like, I'm going to go to UGA, I'm going to go to the University of Georgia, be a Bulldog, go have fun, blah, blah, blah. College is the best 4 years of your life. And I didn't get accepted. And so then I was just like, what do I do? So I went to Georgia College, GCSU in Milledgeville.
That's where my brother goes.
Great school. Like, honestly, I didn't drop out because I hated that school per se. It was just, and the other thing that people do, a lot of times is, join a fraternity, it'll be, all this stuff. And I pledged. I went through pledgeship, and I actually got I don't know if you're familiar with that, but like basically you go through this like bidding process where you go and you visit all the fraternities on campus, and they all kind of like decide whether they want you or not, kind of. And girls do the same thing with sororities. And it's like bid day is like this day where everyone places their bids on you essentially. And there's like a Greek council or whatever, and all the brothers of the fraternity literally like go through a slideshow from what I've heard, and like literally pick like, did you guys like that guy? No, I don't think he's worth it. Oh, this guy was cool. Yeah, I know him. Actually, he's a friend from high school. But okay, cool, he's in. Blah blah blah. And then they all the different fraternities place a bid, and you get these envelopes that say like, oh, Pi Kappa whatever is extending the invitation for you to become a brother or become in the brotherhood of this.
Become a bro.
Yeah. So anyways, you get those invitations, and then you can choose to accept them or choose a different one or not at all. And so my initial thoughts were like, I'll do the whole like bid thing, and then I'll decide whether I even want to accept one or not. And then my mindset was kind of like, well, I already kind of like went through this whole process. Might as well like choose one, see what happens. Chose one. It was the one that I wanted, so I was like stoked about that and all this stuff. But I was involved with this company, Vima, and it was taking up a lot of my energy because it was like when I wasn't doing the stuff with the fraternity that was like mandatory, I was committing to this business that I was thinking was going to further my future. And so I think a lot of the people took it as me not wanting to hang out with them outside of stuff that was mandatory. And they're kind of like, why are you doing this if you don't want to hang out with us kind of thing?
Right.
I don't know. And so anyways, I ended up getting dropped from the pledgeship, which is probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I think that if I would have gotten accepted and I would have actually like been an official member, I don't know if I would have been able to like
drop out of school,
have the guts to drop out, because I was so connected. I had this brotherhood that now I was a part of and all this stuff,
Can't leave the bond, dude.
Yeah, I can't leave the bro.
I paid for these friends.
And even if I left, a lot of people would leave GCSU, but it wasn't necessarily because they were just like dropping out to like pursue something else. It was like they were going to transfer to UGA or something. That wasn't looked upon. Yeah, that wasn't really like looked upon as like a bad thing. Like, oh, you're leaving us, bro? Like, it wasn't looked upon as like that. It was looked upon as like an upgrade, so that wasn't like a taboo thing.
Bro,
but so to make a long story short, like eventually I decided this Vima thing, I wanted to pursue it more seriously, and I wasn't enjoying college and I was kind of failing a lot of my classes. So I was just like, I'm gonna try this and I can always go back if I want to, and this is what I'm doing. And I did it, and I was really scared because I was afraid of what my parents would think. And I was afraid that I wouldn't have a roof over my head and all that kind of stuff. But I was prepared for that. I wrote out like a whole letter to my parents and kind of like sat them down and read it to them. And it was a kind of a scary, weird time.
Yeah, I'm assuming your parents are loving and caring, and you have a good household. I think when I got back home, my dad was like, "Thank God," because. I was working for my dad when I was 12. Child labor laws don't matter in a family business.
No.
But he needed help and he needed work. So when I got back home, I was like, I just told him like, I don't think I can do this anymore. They were just like, okay, you can just come home and work and figure it out. And I'm like, okay, because neither of my parents were college graduates. So they
weren't like attached to you having that.
No, they didn't like, oh, you need the experience, you need a degree or you're not going to get a job, that type of thing. So they understood and they were okay with it. Yeah, and my oldest brother, he went to Georgia Primary College, and he's still in school. Like he's been part-time for years, and he's doing better than ever before. So it's not like it's never been my parents never paid for school. So it was all on my dime. So that was another thing, I had to drop out because I ran out of money.
Yeah, it happens.
It does. So it was kind of nice, but then realizing that I'm going back to the same old thing that I've been doing for years, it was kind of hard to deal with. It's like, it really felt like, man, am I going to be in the catering business forever? Am I going to take over this business and become an alcoholic? I don't know. So you just like, it's these, these fears of the unknown just kind of almost take over, and you just got to kind of take it day by day.
Exactly. I think a ton of people listening to this can relate to that because, especially with, you see all these articles, millennials are moving in back with their parents at record highs and blah, 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 all this kind of stuff like that. And it's like, it's just happening a lot. Like people are moving back home or whatever. And it's not because they're fuck ups or anything like that. It's like right now we're in a system that's failing most people, unfortunately.
I think colleges...
We've been sold the wrong dream in a lot of cases.
I think the focus has been warped, and I think you could agree on this too, even today, like, there's an outbreak on, socialist mentality, even communist mentality, and you think about it, college is a very collective socialist environment. You got one objective, everything's taken care for you, everything's almost paid for, you know, you have funding, and you're just there to do one thing, which is study, get a degree, and leave. And everyone has that non-individual mindset because they're not really, I mean, you can be an individual in college, but you're all doing the same thing. You know, hey, how your class is going? You know, that's usually like, what are you majoring in? You know, everyone's got the same goal, doing the same thing. And I feel like that's ruining people. It really almost, you know, you're a worker at school. You're going to come out a worker unless you go beyond and do something with it.
That was the biggest thing that I, you know, was talking with my parents about was like, you know, no one at any college will disagree with this statement that college is not designed to make you the most money. College is not designed to even make you money. College is going to actually take money from your pocket. And college isn't even necessarily designed to get you the best job. It's just simply designed to get you that degree that will hopefully make you look attractive enough to a business that you can get your first quote unquote
it's
real
all
job.
chance. It's all chance.
Yeah,
it's like buying Pokemon cards.
And the other thing that is, you know, I was talking to a friend about this the other day because we've had some friends recently that, you know, are going through some depression and going through some crazy, you know, suicidal thoughts and, you know, like stuff like that. And it's just like, geez, man, like, and a lot of times I think it stems from this fact that we've been sold the wrong dream. And when that dream fails you, like, you know, you spend all this money, get your degree, and you either go out and try to get a job and you can't find one that pays the amount that you hoped, and then you can't pay off your loans and all this stuff, or you do get that job and it's just not all that it's cracked up to be, and you're really depressed because now you're just stuck in this 9-to-5 rat race that you hate.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think a lot of times, you know, you go to Christmas and Thanksgiving, oh, cool, what's your major, blah, blah, blah. And then once you get out of that, you have to come up with another thing to say now. Like, oh, now I'm working in insurance. Yeah,
I got this idea. I think it's gonna work. You know.
Yeah, and like everyone's always wanted to. I've always heard about this about like Hollywood. Everyone's always talking about, oh, I got a bunch of irons in the fire. I've got this coming up, a possible project. Well, they're always trying to like brag about like what they're potentially gonna do. And a lot of times people just ask you that to kind of like check a checkbox and like, hey Max, what are you up to these days? You know, just because it's casual, you know, conversation. But to be honest, I hate those types of conversations because
it's like saying like it's like you're on a track and I'm telling you, man, I'm about to run really fast. I'm gonna run really fast. Just you wait. I'm gonna run really fast. And you're just like, it's right there. Go do it. Go run. Why are you talking about it? And I mean, it's because they're talking it up because they don't feel like they can run that fast. And the more people they bring, it's that collectivism. The more people you can bring in the idea that you're about to do something, you might muster up the confidence to actually do it. So you're very dependent on people, which is, I mean, in a line is an insecurity. I mean, I drank myself to sleep a couple nights in college. Yeah. It was just that bad. And because I was in an environment where people didn't care, I was in just huge crowds, huge classrooms, where, you know, I really had no place or had no idea what was going on. You're just caught in this wave, in this ocean of, you know, uncertainty. And I developed bad habits over there, just to escape. That was really, it was just to escape. But I mean, you know, I love when I see people do well in school.
Of course.
I love, you know, I see so many people from my high school who have graduated and are doing well. I mean, I don't talk to them, you know, but they're pursuing these jobs and these careers, even like on LinkedIn, like it's like the suggested, these people I went to school with, and then some of them, like we could give a shit about each other, but they're like have these positional roles. I mean, they may not be real or they may not be, but it's just like, that's so cool. I'm glad this person has this job. You know, I'm glad they went through school and I'm glad they got that degree. I'm glad they made it work. Because that's what it was given to them. It was understandable, and you made it work. Congrats, you know. But again, you know, other people who are entrepreneurs and who want to pursue a more individual lifestyle and really just kind of, you know, do things their way. More props to them. But you know, people who are going through school and they don't know what they should do. You know, if you really feel like you have a chance, you know, maybe make more of it than what you're trying to do. That might be the issue, because a lot of people is like, well, I don't like what it's giving me, so I'm just going to leave. It's like, well, don't just have what they're giving you. Take more, you know, make it more. Turn to something of your own. You know, Don't live this mundane life where you're just like, okay, I just need to get up at 10 a.m. and get to my 10:15 class, and then, you know, like pursue a life that's flourishing, that's fruitful while you're doing the grind. It's just like, you know, you and I today, you know, we have these aspirations that we have these big projects that we want to do, but we're actually doing something as we slowly work on them.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just not sitting around talking about them like, man, I'm going to run really fast. I just don't know when I'm going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, for example, my friend, I won't name his name. I don't need to call him out. But one of my friends, he's always talking about like, oh yeah, he's like a real estate agent, and you know, he's saying, once I get my real estate stuff more established, I'm going to start a YouTube channel and creating content and all stuff. I'm kind of like, why don't you start right now? Like, you don't need everyone wants to think they have to have this like elaborate setup, or they have to have all the right things. And the way that I always think about it is, you don't set out on a journey of 1,000 miles waiting for every traffic light to be green.
Or the weather to be good.
Or the, you know, all the conditions, which is kind of funny. I just had the podcast with the guy who did the cannonball run.
Yeah, you told me about that.
And it's like, you can't, you know, in that situation, you're trying to go fast and far, and you can only roll the dice on all those types of things. And that's the same thing that happens in life, man. There's never going to be a perfect time. There's never going to be the perfect time, place, circumstances, all that kind of stuff. You just got to make your first baby step towards whatever you're trying to do. And the way that, like, I was just thinking about, you know, a lot of people, if you ask them, for example, what would you do if you won the lottery? You know, and some people say they really love their job, all this stuff. It's like, but if you won the lottery, you wouldn't go, right? You know, you might enjoy your job, but if you actually won the lottery, it's not what you ultimately want to do if money was no object, or if you had millions of dollars in the bank. And a lot of people would say, well, I'd really want to travel, or I'd really want to, you know, do more in my community and help other people and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, like, so if we boil down that that's actually what you want to do at your heart of hearts, and that's what you would do if you didn't have to like work for yourself. Now let's try to reverse engineer that. How can you actually achieve that lifestyle without actually going through the process of working for 50 years to hopefully, because that's what a lot of people say too. They say, well, what are you going to do when you retire? Oh, I'm probably going to want to travel. But like, you look at my dad, for example. My dad's in his 50s, and we went to, you know, Italy and Spain, and it was hard for him to keep up because his knees are bad, right? You know, and it's like he would love to travel more and do more things and adventure, but it's like your body's not cut out for that at that point.
Well, yeah, the longer you wait, you might miss your chance. You know, I mean, I see a lot of people who, you know, even have kids. It's like having kids is a huge responsibility, and you will lose these moments, these things, these aspirations you want to do because you have bigger priorities, which is raising up a young person, raising up to be a better individual. And in the end, that's more important. So, I mean, you really do need to get it out now. And I mean, that's kind of where I'm at in my life, where it's like, I have these personal goals of mine that I just need to knock out before I even settle down.
Oh, for sure.
And it's almost like, and it's kind of working out like that because I'm so focused on that stuff. You know, I'm emotionally unavailable for people. You know, it's just like I'm just so determined to not to check these things off. I'm just so, you know, and I'm just so closed off from the outside world because of that focus. You know, I'm willing to let go and relax and socialize and do that stuff, but you know, you got to put your heart in it. Like if you're not losing, it's almost like, I hate to say this, but if you're not losing friends over what you love, hey, you know, you might be doing something right. Or you might be doing something really wrong. But yeah, so it's, you know, and that's the thing too, you know, I think, and we're looking for that familiarity. We're looking for that comfort to actually make an action. You know, money is a huge thing. So if we have that cushion, that nest of a lot of money, and the limitations are now gone, now I feel good. Now I feel comfortable enough to make these pursuits. So what do we do internally, emotionally? How do we make you comfortable enough to actually make those pursuits without the means?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you know, and I mean, that's what I love about what I do as a personal trainer, because it's not just getting people more healthy. You know, I'm working with people's emotional baggage, their physical limitations, like your dad, for say, like he's got bad knees, which prevent him from traveling. Well, what if I can take your dad, fix his knees to the point where they don't hurt anymore and he can travel now? I'm not saying let your dad be my client, though you should call him and let him know that I'm available. But that's, I mean, I have clients who are overweight and they feel uncomfortable and they feel like their weight is holding them back from achieving what they want to do. Let's strip these limitations. Let's reinforce our emotions. Let's add that confidence in and really understand who we are as a person. no matter where we are now, we can pursue what we want to do.
Very true, man. And like, you know, it's great what you said about the helping people with their like emotional baggage and all that kind of stuff too, because a lot of times it's not necessarily getting past the actually going to the gym and actually lifting the weights and stuff. Sometimes people have like weird, deep-seated stuff they think about themselves that hinder them from actually going and creating a great-looking body or a great functioning body or being more healthy or whatever, because their whole life they've been told they're the fat, funny guy or whatever, and that's like their identity.
Right.
And they feel like if they start changing that, people are going to be like, you know, why is he doing that? And that's another thing is people want you to stay in their box, because if you stay in that box, you know, they won't feel bad about them staying stationary or, you know, being, well, at least I'm not as fat as Max was or something. You know what I mean? Like people will actually think that deep down. They wouldn't say it out loud, but like, you know what I mean? They literally in their brain will think things like that and to rationalize how they look and feel and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I was hanging out with a good friend of mine named Aaron. He was at UGA at the time, and I was with him and his girlfriend. We were going out to eat. And, you know, Aaron, you know, he was a high school buddy. You know, we kind of split ways in college, and then he came back and said, hey, I want to get back in, I want to get into lifting. And so, and that really rekindled our relationship. You know, I was hanging out with him and his girlfriend, and then we were talking about, you know, what's too big? Like, what's being too big? And then Aaron's girlfriend was like, don't get Max size. Don't get as big as Max. I'm just like, well, I appreciate it. You know, now I'm gonna just stop working out. I'm just gonna maintain, you know. I mean, it didn't really bother me because I don't need a woman's approval of how I look. It's for my own. They can deal with it however they want to. But it's interesting. It's like, you know, we're always gonna have biases. We're always gonna put someone in a box. It's not bad. I don't think it's bad. I think that's just who we are. That's our perception. Just make the box big enough so you can see growth. You know. Because, you know, I can assume that you could be, you know, I can assume that you do certain things or you only, you know, who you are. I can make random assumptions, but people are all going to do that. But if I give you a big enough box and actually see you grow and see how you move, then I'm going to start to know who you really are. You know, it's like being open-minded, technically, you know, to simplify things. And
admitting you're wrong. Because being able to modify that box that I put around you is internally admitting that I was wrong about my previous assumption.
Yes, exactly. And I think a big thing that I had to learn was humility. Just to be humble and to not put any glorification like in my works. I just, you know, I do what I do and I know what I know. And that's really it. You know, I am who I am. I mean, I lift more, I'm bigger than the average person. I lift more than the average person, but I just lift weights. I'm just, you know, I don't put my identity that I'm just like, I'm this fucking beast and I can just wreck your shit and You know, I'm just a normal guy who just likes to pick heavy things up and put them back down. And growing bigger is just a product of that.
Yeah.
You know.
And what do you think about, you know, strength as a skill? You know, I've heard that a lot, like that strength is like a skill versus a thing that you are. You know what I mean?
Well, another thing, like strength is built, it's not tested. It takes time. So you need to perfect, what does it mean to be strong? You know, what does it mean to be physically strong? And it's patience and it's humility. It's, you know, it's a lot of things. It's more than just cranking the bar and watching it go. No, it's methodical. It's it's a very slow process. I mean, I love lifting weights over any other sport because it's a raw feeling. Like to feel 500 pounds in your hands coming off the ground, trying to tear your body down. It's a high you're never gonna get. Like I remember when I first deadlifted 501.
Gotta get that 01.
Oh yeah. I was like, there's no way I'm doing 500. I'm doing 501. And I pulled
just
it
in case one of those weights is slightly off. I know for a fact I did 500.
Weigh it before I lift it. But I picked it. I stood there. I was quiet. I picked it up. I locked out and I just held it. It's almost like you just watch the sunset or you just, you know, you look into the ocean and you just, it's like I'm no longer myself. I am now merely the product of what I just attempted. I picked up this weight and I'm just standing there, dropped it. I almost cried. Like it was that emotional for me because it wasn't just like, oh, I worked so hard to get to that point, which I did. But for years, you know, I've always been like, I can't really do that. You know, I can't get out of the pool because I'm so overweight, that type of thing. And now I was like, I pulled 501 fucking pounds off the floor, held it for 10 seconds, threw it on the ground, and darted out of the room, almost crying. It's like, I was like, what have I become? And my life has just done a giant 360, all because, really all because of humility, because my pride was an old identity. I had pride in this idea of who I was. I humbled myself and to receive different perspectives of who I could be, and that allowed me to grow. Pride will keep you in the same spot for years. You will never change if you're prideful. Humility is how you grow and it's how you move forward. It's how you become better. Because you can't learn if you're prideful.
Very true. That is very true. One thing that Jamie was talking about when I had him on the podcast, he was talking about how he'll have clients where he'll ask him in the initial, he'll have kind of an assessment. And he'll ask them in the initial assessment, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate your knowledge of fitness? Mm-hmm. And he'll get people that are overweight that say like 9s and 10s. And he's like, well, why do you say that? And they're like, well, I did like some PE classes in high school, and I run, and he's like, well, just to put it in perspective, I think I'd put myself at like a 6 or a 7. Just because there's so much that I know for a fact that I don't know, and there's doctors and people that have been doing this for their entire lives that just know infinitely more than I do. And even though I would be at a point where people would say, wow, that guy's really physically fit and you're a trainer and all this, but I do know a lot, but there's so much more. And then they go, oh yeah, you're probably right. I'm probably like a 1 or a 2. Yeah. And then it's just like, the humbling and the being able to realize that you don't know everything and that's okay. That's the thing that people don't want to admit, is that they don't know anything and it's okay to not know anything.
I think I love it. I think it's great. I think that when you realize you don't know something, let's say you are at a 1 or a 2, it's like, oh my God, how do I get that 8 or 9 more points? Mm-hmm. What else is out there in the world that I can discover and learn about myself in the process? Mm-hmm. And so people get, pissed off when they're wrong. It's like, man, I'm just like, how can I be wrong? It's like, dude, you just learned something new. You are a little bit better than you were a few seconds ago. Mm-hmm. Why are you upset? Because you're embarrassed that someone called you out and that you're wrong? Yeah. Dude, get over it.
I think it's because people put their identity in their ideas.
Yes,
and they're married to those ideas.
Absolutely.
And when they grow up and mature and realize that those ideas were immature, or they realize that those ideas are wrong, and they realize, wow, the world is way different than I thought it was. Like you were kind of saying, when you're in college and you're kind of in this isolated bubble, and yeah, on paper a lot of this stuff would make sense. A communist tribe of 10 people would make a lot of sense. Right. But when you're talking about the population of the entire United States, and you've got all these weird little nuances and stuff, and you're dealing with the fact that people aren't connected as they would be in a 10-person tribe, it starts to break down, and you have to realize, like, wow, you're right, like this doesn't work at a macro scale, or anything is like that. When you're married to your ideas, it's a very dangerous place to be.
Yeah, and it's you become isolated from other people. It reframes you. Like, I have a brother, my younger brother, who leans more toward the left, and he called me one day and he's like, I can't affiliate myself with you with these ideas of yours. And I'm just like, what ideas? And he started listing these things, these names of who I was, and I'm just like, I'm the evil one, yet you're the person who's isolating your own brother because of ideas, concepts that we are not, neither of us are applying to reality, that actually aren't manifesting, they're just in our heads. And you're isolating me because of that. Who's the real person in the wrong?
Because you're right, they just are ideas, they're opinions.
People think they're threatening. They think ideas are threatening. They think words are threatening. It's like they're only as strong as what you give them. Like the N-word. Like the N-word will no longer be offensive if people stop becoming offended by it. It'll be boring. No one would like to use it anymore.
But people like using it as a crutch, and they like using it as a point of offense.
They use it as a point of offense. They use it in media. There's a cultural thing behind it.
And I think they also like using it to be recreationally outraged. Like, if a white person says the N-word to you in a negative way, you should look at that person as, wow, what an ignorant piece of trash. Like, this guy shouldn't even deserve my time. Wow, what an original concept. Calling a black guy the N-word.
Applaud this.
Wow.
Give this man a gold star.
How did you come up with such an amazing insult? Like, there's nothing smart behind it. It's just being a dumbass. Like, it's the simplest form. It's like, really? You went there? Like when PewDiePie recently on YouTube, like, dropped the N-word in one of his live streams, and more of it, PewDiePie came out with a response, and he was like, I just feel like an idiot. Because I've looked at people like this as so dumb for so long, and I have stooped to their level. Rather than having hate in his heart and like actually hating, black people or whatever it might be, he was just like, I stooped to that level of stupidity, and I'm sorry, and I'm trying to be better.
PewDiePie's a good guy, and I think, as he slowly becomes more of an individual and he becomes less marketable, YouTube and other media sources are going to try to cut him out. And that's the thing,
you don't need them.
Oh yeah, exactly. Here's the thing though, that I came to terms with. What if I looked at you and said, like, Andrew, you're a fat ass. You are an obese, sick fuck, and you are disgusting. You need to lose some weight. You're gonna look at me and like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm lean as a board. It's like, you even helped me with my weight loss program. What the hell are you talking about? It doesn't resonate with your identity. So you're not going to get offended by it because it's not real. But if you were to say the N-word and people were like, oh, like they flip tables and they burn towns and everything like that, there might be some reality that they are one. Not to say that they are, but they perceive them as that. There's a fear that they might be that. Because if you say, Max, you're a weak piece of, like, if you get to me like you're a weak piece of shit, I'm just like, yeah, I know, but I'm okay with that. I'm not offended because I'm comfortable with myself. People who are offended are not comfortable with themselves. And it says a lot. You're not righteous for being upset. You're not righteous for being a victim. And it's upsetting because I think people, do you know the main reason why we love dogs so much?
Because they're unconditional love?
Because they're unconditional love, but they are helpless.
And they need us.
They need us. We have designed them to be helpless. We've designed them to we give them food. We take them out to go to the bathroom. They sleep with us. They need a roof over their head.
We've taken their power.
Exactly.
And we're scared of like pit bulls and other dogs that are bigger because we're like,
we can't control them.
This dog could turn on me at any moment.
We can't control them. Once you ableize someone's victimization, and you say, yes, this person is helpless. He can't do anything. You treat them like a dog. And that makes you feel good because you're helping a quote-unquote helpless individual. So next time you enable someone's victimization and don't encourage them to be better or move beyond external issues, you're treating them like a dog.
Something that I've been thinking about a lot recently that I heard brought up in a podcast was, obviously in our current, social climate and politicizing of, feminism and rights, equal rights for everybody and all this stuff, which all things that I 100% agree with. I think that we should have equal rights for people. Everyone should have an equal opportunity. Like, if someone is not being hired simply because of the way they look or the way they are, that's wrong or whatever.
Right.
But when, like you said, people are offended because they're almost kind of subconsciously afraid that they are one. I look a lot of times at I'm going to offend some people by saying this, so I kind of just don't care.
Oh, dude, when you start, I want to keep going.
So a lot of, recently I've seen a lot of this stuff about like women empowerment, which is great. I love it. Yes, empower women, of course. But we don't need to do it in a way that's like, for example, let's say you're at this was the example that was given on this podcast. I think it was on the Joe Rogan podcast. And he was talking about how this woman was in the crowd at this like roast battle kind of thing.
Right.
And she was only cheering at the women. And even on Twitter, she said something about like going to support her fellow woman or something like that. And it was almost, it's like, okay, cool, do that. But like, why do you have to like weirdly specify that? You know what I mean? Or like,
it's almost like, do women need support? And therefore, if women need support, are they inherently weaker in the situation?
Exactly. It's like you're supporting your own bias in a way.
They wouldn't need your support if they were perfectly fine. So you are promoting a weak link within them.
Like, how weird would it be if a man went to that same show and was like, yeah, team man! Like, every time a man went up on stage.
Team penises, yeah!
Yeah. Like, that's just weird, and everyone would be like, what are you doing, bro? Like, stop that.
It's like, yeah, let us do our work. You know, it's...
But when a woman does it, we're almost kind of like, that's cute. Yeah, keep support. Yeah, support the other women.
And they hate that, but they want that at the same time. It's just like, they've almost made this fake issue. So now we really don't know how to respond to it.
Yeah, it is awkward.
We don't know whether to reach out to and assist them, but that if we reach out and assist them, that means they need help, but they don't want to be helped.
We're systemizing their help.
Exactly. Or if we don't do anything about it and let them be alone, we're the patriarchy and we're suppressing them. We don't know, like, it's a made up situation, so therefore we do not know how to respond, and you really cannot win unless they're riding on your back. If they receive the handout. You know, I have no problem empowering other people. That's what I do for a living. Most of my clients are women. You know, it's something I understand completely. But there needs to be truth in it. You can't make up this fake facade of this idea that's like, oh, I'm oppressed. It's like, okay, let's find the oppressor. Or let's find the law that's oppressing you. We will point it out and we'll knock it out. If there's nothing there, you need to be more specific. Like, it's like the patriarchy. What is that? Sometimes I make jokes that, like, I'm the final boss of the patriarchy. Once you win, you have to fight me, like in a fist fight, because equal rights, equal fights, you know. But I need context, because we disproven the wage gap, because there was a law in the fair pay law, whatever, 1960, 1970. That's already been added. You can't complain about that. The pink tax doesn't exist. You know, women in the law, you know, a woman is 60% has a 60% higher chance of getting a lesser sentence for the same crime as a man would. You know, women during court custody for the children, women most likely women most likely get the kids, which studies have shown that a male figure needs to be present in raising kids or issues come. You know, what do they want? And so I do feel like there is an issue, there is a dispute going on between basically male and female connection, because that's really all it is. It's male and females interacting, and there's a problem. And, you know, it could be the broken home situation because, you know, divorce is skyrocketing, crime, you know, it's just...
In recent years, actually, divorce, they've said, has leveled off a bit. Because I think we did get into a point where we're kind of like, okay, this is ridiculous. Let's chill out before we, like, settle down. You know, it is still very high.
Right.
But I've also heard that in recent years, people are, you know, taking it more. They've seen in the media, everyone's talking about divorce rates are sky high. And so people are like, you know what? I won't be a part of this statistic. I'm going to think about this more and give it a second thought. Do I really want to, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I think the more... but you're right, man. Like, I agree that, you know, a lot of these are kind of made up problems, and it's not that there isn't instances of injustice or instances of oppression or instances where bad things have happened, but bad things and instances are always going to happen. There's always going to be outliers.
Exactly.
There's always going to be some time when there is, like, for example, with the Harvey Weinstein thing that's happening right now. When there is a position of power, there is always the ability and almost the temptation to abuse that power. Always.
Well, there's a study they did a movie on it where, you know, humans are not designed to rule over other humans. We can't handle that power.
Yeah, like the study that they did where there was like the fake prison guards and the prisoners.
Exactly. And yeah, they got power hungry, they became abusive, they started physically abusing the fake prisoners. And it's interesting, and that's actually where my political ideology is starting to, like, go towards. It's like, you know, we have that concept. We are governed by laws made by other people who are just as normal as you and I. They may know a little more about something, but they're still at fault. Like, they're still, you know, they still fault like you and I. And it's just interesting. It's just like, you know, I really feel like there's just a discontent of our abilities. I really feel like people who are feeling they're oppressed, they feel like they feel powerless, because it goes back to yourself. It goes back to, like, your ability to do what are you able to do. It's like, well, I feel like I have no control over my life, so it looks like I'm going to get a bunch of people together. We're all going to have the same ideologies, and we're going to force people to fixing it.
Yeah, and I think people, they're realizing that they're just painfully average. You know what I mean? Like they don't excel at anything, and so they want to join
sad.
this like mob of people that all think the same way, and that's where they get their power.
Yeah.
Is from joining this mob mentality. And like for me, I hate almost associating myself with groups, because then when something bad happens with that group, I get tied in. And I'm like, I don't want to be tied in with the good or the bad. I'm just Andrew.
That's the issue too. It's like I hate that. It's like, you know, it's like the what happened in Charlottesville. That guy who ran over that woman. There's like, oh, this is why the right is bad. This is why these people are bad. It's like quit it. That is the mentality that you need to steer away from. That his actions are his own. The group was like, okay, we're gonna plan this car crash and kill this specific woman. It wasn't planned. It's like you have to separate one man's actions from thousands of people. It's like the Black Lives Matter sniper who killed cops in the city. It's like, oh, this is why Black Lives Matter is bad. It's like, wait, no. Like, you may disagree with them, but he's his own person. He did his own thing. Black Lives Matter didn't tell him, go snipe these cops. You know, you have to separate one man's action. And that's what we want to do. It's easier to blame a group of people than one person.
But in that defense, that you could say that those radical ideologies enabled that sort of thinking to make that guy more quote unquote
more
have
likely
the propensity to do something like that.
I mean, yeah,
and that's where people get really mad, because they say, well, when you have the groups like the NRA and these groups like, you know, whatever, like these really far right wing groups, you're like, well, when you're glorifying guns and supporting guns, you're making people have the propensity to be comfortable around guns, and then when they get angry, go kill people.
Well, see, that's, you know, I think being comfortable around guns is important. I think what stops a person with a gun? A person with a bigger gun. Mm-hmm. You know, and I mean, not to distract, but I mean, like with the Black Lives Matter guy, you like, if you're just marching down the street, blocking traffic, holding signs, kill cops. I mean, yeah, you're gonna be like, you know what, this is justifiable. Let me kill some cops. It's like this is a good idea.
Yeah,
I had military experience.
Yeah,
but you know, and like with gun control as well, you know. People don't seem to realize that once you place these laws, which it's hard to get a gun. Like, yeah, you can buy a gun illegally. You can buy a lot of things illegally, pretty easily. But you're only oppressing the law-abiding citizens. Mm-hmm. Like the Vegas shooter, like he had tons of guns that he just randomly had.
Yeah,
and it's just like
the weird thing is, I heard that he got them from like three gun stores or whatever. Which I don't know the sources. I don't know the exact information, but I heard that it was like 3 different stores that he purchased the guns from.
You'd be able to confirm that with the number on the gun, the actual,
the serial number.
Exactly.
The problem that a lot of people have is the gun show thing, like where you could go to a gun show, like a trade show, and you can like purchase a gun from somebody.
That's been debunked. That's been debunked.
But in some states it still exists, I think. In certain states, like weird, you know, middle of the country states. I'm not well versed in it, so I don't know. But the main complaint people are saying is like, treat it like cars, you know, like when someone wants to drive and use a car, we make them take a test, they go to the DMV, they take a test, they get a license, and then every car that they use and have must always have this license plate that the police track or whatever.
I know, but it's like, you know, you get a background check, you do have like, you know, you get a background check and everything. It's like, what else do you need? Like, do you need someone to stay with you for a while and like see how your temperament is and things like that?
Yeah.
It's like, how far do you need you get to someone's freedom for the safety of someone else?
Well, I think the argument that people are having is they're saying, well, if we can implement stricter laws, like I kind of don't care that your freedom is slightly inhibited because we might protect just one life. That's what people are saying. They're like, if we implement these rules, maybe we might be able to save one person.
But see, I think we're.
And isn't that worth it? Is what the argument
I think we're oppressing our truth with preferences, with comfort.
Like, I don't want my neighbor to have a gun because it makes me uncomfortable.
That's, you know, then get a gun. You know, or you shouldn't be living next to a neighbor that makes you uncomfortable. You know, you should get out of. You should really take yourself out of situations.
But well, like you could argue, like for example, in a place like New York City. Let's say you live in New York City, and like in theory, like get out of New York City if it makes you uncomfortable. But you've got people on top of you, people next to you, people on the right of you, people on the left of you, and that's why typically in cities, I think they tend to be more liberal because everyone's kind of packed together. And so it's like, we should have regulations that I want to regulate my neighbors because they're surrounded by me and I can't really do much about that unless I move out of the city and stop working in New York City.
Well, I mean that in itself.
Because like if you live in the middle of the country, you can kind of isolate yourself and be like, I don't really give a shit what my neighbors do because they're 5 miles away. I live on this big piece of property. If you don't like living in New York, come out and live here in Kansas, blah, blah, blah.
Southern hospitality is a real thing and the North does not have it. But highly governments that are highly ran by Democrats have a high crime rate. Chicago, New York, things with high gun control have an unbelievably high crime rate.
You could argue though that that's because of the, obviously it's like percentage of people, I think the crime rate is like the percentage of violence versus how many people live there. So it makes sense, but at the same time, it's
but you also can get in the percentage of who is actually committing the crime, which I don't think we should talk about.
No.
But
there's a lot of variables is what I'm trying to say.
There are, and I think, to be honest, like, that's, I think, but these are the consequences you have when you have a society and you live with other people, It's like, there are genuinely good people out here. And I think the majority of society are genuinely good. I think the media kind of blows up that there are some crazy gun-loving shooter who are willing to pull a gun on you at a heartbeat. I think that's just the media playing a role, playing a scare tactic. But I think, I own guns. I own plenty of guns, and I just keep them there. Gun owners are just as normal as you and I. And we're not some radicals who's like, they took our guns. We're not like, we own guns, and it's you don't need to strip me from the means of protection because I know the police aren't going to be there when something happens.
It's true. Yeah, this is how I like to think about it, because obviously a lot of this I'm playing devil's advocate because I do support gun rights. But the thing is that's funny is I actually don't own guns. No one in my family that I know of actually owns guns, but I do support it because I know, for example, like my friend Luke Crawford that on the podcast, he's a avid gun, user, trained hours and hours. He's very proficient with guns, very knowledgeable, very safe, always following protocol, following the laws around guns. If shit goes down, I want people like Luke around that are good guys that are going to be helping with that kind of stuff. And the only people that are around are the bad guys with guns. I don't want that. I want to be able to go to Luke's house and be friends with him, or be friends with you, person that has guns and owns guns and will use them for their protection. But a point that I wanted to make is I think you talked about earlier being able to lift 500 pounds. And we don't ban people from doing that because that's arguably dangerous, right? You could drop the 500 pounds on your toe and then
I could break my spine. Yeah,
you break your spine. You could like being in a gym. Surprisingly very little injuries, thinking about how much weight is being lifted over people's heads, stuff like that. Like literally I could kill people in a gym easily by going up to them and like sitting on their face, like we were joking about earlier, while they're benching or something, because they would drop the weight on themselves. They might suffocate, they might drop it on their neck. You could go behind someone and like kick the backs of their knees out while they're like doing some sort of snatch or something, and the weight hits them in the head and kills them. There's plenty of ways where you could really physically injure someone. But the reason why that doesn't happen is because there's a respect. Exactly. And so the thing is, like, do you have enough respect for yourself to actually take the means and go out of your way to protect yourself? Because you don't know what's going to happen. There's some situations you can't control and that are bad and that happen to you in your life, but sometimes it's avoidable. Sometimes it's sometimes you put yourself in that situation, and if you have the means, if you're like, I am worth living, I am worth taking care of, my well-being is important. So guess what? I'm gonna get a gun. And if I don't use it, I don't use it. And if I do, okay, I make sure that I am under jurisdiction to use it. But it shouldn't. The fear tactic needs to go away. Yeah. Like there was just recently, like right after the Vegas shooting in China, there was like a knife massacre or something. Someone with a knife just started killing a bunch of people. Yeah, like a machete or something. It's just like, Jesus, like we're gonna ban, like murder is already illegal. Yeah. It's just like, are we gonna ban knives now? It's like, I don't know what do we need to keep, like how far, it is like a slippery slope. Like how far, what do we need to do like to get the end goal? Yeah. And the thing is you're right, we need to look at the end goal. I want to go back for a second to the thing about the weightlifting, because I think another thing that people get worried about is, for example, if I went up and kicked someone's legs out while they're lifting that weight over their head, the argument could be like, well, shouldn't have been doing that. It's a dangerous activity, kind of knew the risks. He knew that could potentially happen. Yes. No one's going to really make that argument because they're like, dude, this guy was just trying to work out. He wasn't trying to hurt anyone, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to there's 2 points I want to make, because I think people are really scared of the gun control thing, because especially the Vegas shooting, people were out minding their own business, having a beautiful night with maybe they were on a date, maybe they're just trying to have fun, all this stuff, and then they were just murdered in broad daylight.
Well, see,
and that's what people are scared of.
I don't want to be like some conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but it's weird.
That whole situation is weird.
The story keeps changing. I mean, there's videos of a second window firing.
I don't want to go into the conspiracy just yet.
But it's just like situations like, yeah, it's absolutely horrible, and all those people in their lives are like those lost, and they're never going to get that back. But it's just like, you can't. It's like I think you're just regulating human nature, and I think that's going to only cause things worse.
Oh no, I agree, and I'm just saying, like, I think that's the reason why the anger is there, because people, it's not like someone was out doing this thing. Like, for example, we don't ban rock climbing because it's dangerous, because no one's forcing you to go rock climbing. But they're saying, like, people should have the decency to be able to go out in a public place and not fear for their lives. That's why I think people are outraged by this, because they're like, again, they're talking about this is happening over and over. But the point that I want to make, going back for a second with the weightlifting and the rock climbing, and we don't ban these dangerous activities. For example, people are like, we should regulate guns like cars. There should be a little more laws, blah, blah, blah. And I'm all for like a couple more laws as far as like the difficulty of purchasing a gun or, whatever. Like, I'm fine with that as long as you can still get one if you need to or want to. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like someone buying a Dodge Viper. It's a crazy car. It's really fast. It's super powerful. There's no need for anyone to ever go that fast. It's got crazy aero.
Yeah.
It can go around turns faster, and it stays planted to the ground. It's a beautiful machine, beautiful piece of American machinery. It's beautiful, and it's a death machine if it wanted to be. You could literally go up, and if you're malicious and fucked up enough in the head, you could drive through a crowd of people and kill a lot of people, because those wings on the front, it's almost like a doorstop. You're literally like flinging people with the front of it. It's very aerodynamic. You can hit a lot of things with it. And the argument there would be like, okay, let's ban Dodge Vipers because they're obviously too crazy. And then you get down to, well, what's the goal here? Are we really afraid of the car going that fast? Because there's plenty of Dodge Viper owners that are very responsible, and if they're going to drive it fast, they're going to take it to a closed track and do all that kind of stuff. And there's obviously people that own cars like that. They're going to drive it on the street, and they're going to drive it recklessly.
Right.
And I think in the future, especially with what Tesla's doing with their automated cruise control, extreme self-driving stuff.
That's going to change the game.
Once the rules are like, okay, we're realizing that the cars aren't the problem, it's the people driving them that's the problem, we're just going to start banning people from driving their own cars, especially like, all cars that are made after 2021 must have a self-driving feature, and you can only take over the control of your car under certain circumstances, or on the highway you must be in automated mode, blah blah blah, because 99.999% of all accidents are caused by human error, or whatever, all this kind of stuff. And then we're going to see the Dodge Vipers fall away, because kids growing up in this automated world won't even know that coolness or that freedom or that power. And you could argue that the same thing is going to happen with these crazy, beautiful, amazing, well put together guns that are really effective and all this stuff. And people are like, well, that's just disgusting. Yeah, they're effective for murdering tons of people. And it's like, yeah, you could argue that Dodge Viper is very effective for mowing through a crowd of people very effectively. But you could also argue, blah blah blah.
I mean, there's already cars that have to reach a street legal. They have to be street legal. So there's already laws in place. You can't just make a car, put it on the street, and you're good to go.
You can't make a car that's like pointed on the end, so if you hit someone, it's going to stab them.
With razor blades around the car. Yeah, you can't just...
you have to have a bumper. Yeah, exactly. There's pedestrian, and actually, I don't know if you knew this, there's a law that hood ornaments, there's regulations on those. Like Bentley, for a while, their B kind of like stuck more forward, and the thing is if you got hit by a Bentley and your body went over the front, you could get impaled by the B.
Javelin just right in the back.
And so like the hood ornaments, if you notice on some cars, they actually are flexible and flimsy. Right. So that if they're hit in an accident, they would actually kind of fold over. And like, okay, that makes sense. Like, that's great. Yeah, protect the pedestrians. Right. We can't be putting pointy things on the front of our cars.
Well, if the automated cruise control becomes a real thing,
Which it will.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just gonna fix liability. It's just gonna, drunk driving will drop. But I do feel like, driving old cars will become an art.
Oh, of course.
Just like anything else, It's almost like, archery. We don't need archery anymore because we have guns and we have farms and we have things like that. We really don't need to hunt. But the art to shoot a bow and what it takes.
It's like primal.
Exactly. 45 degrees at the tilt, pull in, steady, breathe. It's your body's communicating with this animate object to create something. So, if we have all these automated vehicles that are all bland and boring, they're just a means of transportation and you don't really put any passion to it. I could see people trying to bring it back. That's public use, and there's private use of cars where we have tracks and things like that.
Yeah, and it is sad because it is going to get to that point. It definitely is. There's going to be a point where it's like you can't drive a car with this much horsepower on the street. You have to take it to a track, and it has to be driven on a closed course where you can't kill pedestrians or whatever.
Right, and it's almost like, I don't trust the government with efficiency. It's like
yeah, exactly.
Have you seen school buses? They're trash. Have you seen mail cars? They're trash. If let's say if the government had control of our phones, we'd still be on razors.
We wouldn't even have that. Razors were actually kind of beautiful. We'd be on Nokia bricks.
Oh yeah, we'd still be there. It's you don't need anything else. It's we don't even know what touchpad. What's that? So
yeah, there'd be no innovation because there's no reason for it. It serves the purpose that they intended, and there's no reason for making it better.
And that's the thing, I think without innovation, if government really got into our cars and the self-automated thing became a thing where it was almost a given need, the innovation would die because it wouldn't matter, It's just innovation is passion, regardless of what you're doing,
Yeah, and Joe Rogan kind of talks about this a lot. I know you're out of water, so if you need to take a sip of mine.
Thanks, bud.
No worries. I don't mind if you have diseases.
Yeah, well, I have AIDS, but it's okay.
Okay,
no,
cool.
I don't.
I don't have a cut on my mouth, so cool.
Wait.
Anyways,
what are we talking about
again? Sorry,
Joe Rogan.
No, but Joe Rogan talks about how he thinks that humans we're on this obsessive quest to become better constantly, which is true. And it's what is kind of this end goal? Because a lot of times we want to think of humanity as we've reached this peak, this pinnacle of human potential, and we obviously haven't. We're still, if you look at the trajectory, we're only still going at more of a steep incline as far as progression of what we can create and what we can do. And with the introduction of stuff like CRISPR, where we can actually modify DNA in the womb and figure out, oh well, I want my son to be tall, of course. Are you really gonna deprive your child of the height that he could have potentially have if you would have modified his
brown hair, blue eyes? Yeah.
And so it's it's this moral debate rather than technological debate, because we have the technology now where we can actually modify that stuff. And the moral debate is do we just my kid is going to be my kid, but then what if your kid turns out fucked up? Then you're going to feel bad for the rest of your life because you're I had the choice to make my kid tall, strong, athletic, and likable and all this, but he came out short and stubby and not athletic and ugly,
But and then people in regard in fitness, people ask me, when do you stop? What is your goal? When is the tipping point of your when do you want to be the pinnacle of your fitness career? And I have no end, and I never want there to be an end. That's the thing, because I'm not looking to stop. Mm-hmm. I want to keep moving and going and just keep moving forward, even if it means I get slower and slower in the future. I think the people who are reaching the goal are just tired. But the journey is what it's about. If you love the journey, you never want there to be a goal. It's like a TV show that you love and it ends.
It should be a checkpoint rather than an end goal.
Exactly, just markers. It's like when The Office ended and I just felt kind of empty because I missed this journey I had with these characters. And it was over. And I'm just kind of geez, am I ever going to get that back? I mean, it did as a TV show. But it's, I want to get better and better each time, And that's the thing, we're trying to find, with laws and with government, we're trying to find an end result. And we're trying to find a conclusion where we've met perfection. We have a utopian society. No death, no disease, nothing wrong.
Now what?
You die. oh, there's no more death anymore. It's just like, it's so, that to me, I was like, if there's no pursuit, that is life. And I feel like this design, I think we just have a wrong mentality on certain things where we're just like, we suppress what we fear, just like the pit bull. I can't control the pit bull. I mean, you know, I think generally pit bulls are good dogs.
Yeah.
I think the hype they're getting in the media is wrong, you know. I've heard stories where a golden retriever just bit someone's face off, you know. If a dog is raised wrong, it's going to act wrong. But we don't understand it. We fear it, so we try to control it. It's the same thing with this. Any situation that happens in this world, if we don't understand it, we fear it, we control it. Mm-hmm. And that's the wrong way to look at it.
And suppression, arguably, and proven, only creates much stronger resistance.
Like prohibition.
Mm-hmm. You had moonshine and there was unregulation. Weed is illegal. How many people do you know that smoke weed on a consistent basis?
No, dude.
It's literally like it's when, especially when you go to something like a music festival and you're like everyone's smoking and you wouldn't, if you were from another country and you didn't know the regulations, you wouldn't even know that it was illegal or something. You know, right. You're like, everyone's smoking weed, like what's the big deal? You know, mm-hmm. Or for example, you know, if we want, there's all these anti-gunners and all this stuff about prohibition of guns. That's only making the opposition, the people that actually do own guns, that are law-abiding and don't kill people and are hobbyists and all that kind of, and hunters and all that kind of stuff. That's only making them more radicalized, and why you are seeing such strong opinions about guns and all this kind of stuff. And it's kind of like, why are you so offensive about this, bro? It's just a gun, bro. It's like, because you're taking away their thing that they like. It's kind of like with the car thing. If people started banning Lamborghinis and Corvettes and all this kind of stuff, people would flip out.
Oh, yeah.
You're taking away their thing that they love. And like, for example, the Cannonball Run that we were mentioning earlier, go listen to episode 50 if you haven't listened to it yet. It's coming out tomorrow, but by the time you're listening to this, you can go listen to it. Ed talks about how the Cannonball Run was initially kind of a protest to the nationwide 55-mile-an-hour speed limit that they had enacted. And they had enacted a nationwide 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, which is just stupid.
Yeah.
Because not all laws apply to all places. And that's the thing. It's like when you suppress, like for example, in Muslim countries, gay people are stoned to death, thrown off buildings, killed, all this stuff.
Yes.
And when you suppress that, you're only making these people more crazy, horny and gay, like, you know, like deep down, like, and that's why they get radicalized, and that's why, like, you know, maybe they're going out and doing these crazy things is because they're being suppressed deep down and they're never able to actually tell anybody their true feelings or whatever.
Well, it's like what we talked about in India, you know, they live in a very conservative life where there's not a lot of expression, and you know, and sex is a form of expression. It is a, you are putting yourself onto someone else and vice versa, and you are showing someone how you feel.
Yeah, you're taking away everything. You're literally shedding your shields and all this stuff that protects you from judgment and all that stuff.
Exactly, and then without reference. So if you have no experience and no reference, you have no way how to respond. And that's why we're getting these great memes of Bob and Virginie, stuff like that. But it's a crisis. I think it's generally a crisis. You know, I see. You know, I think everything we do is a form of expression, especially if it's an art. You know, I lift weights. I think of it as a form of expression because, you know, I don't write, I don't sing, I don't draw, I lift. I pick matter up and I put it back down. You know, you create content, you create community, you talk about what you got going on, and you listen to other people, and you allow people to develop ideas. That's your expression. So if you deprive, and those are just manifestations of our individualism, but sex, everyone has sex. That's
not me, bro.
No,
Virgin for life.
Abstinence for life, man.
Virginity rocks.
Chastity belt.
Virginity rocks, bro.
But you guys are lucky you're only hearing this. But so
I was making a specific hand gesture that I think you could guess.
But in general, guys, you know, like, find out if you feel like you're depressed, oppressed, try to express. Play on words, but in reality, you know, like when I was in college and I was depressed and I was just upset, and I felt like I wasn't doing anything, and I wasn't myself, and I wasn't creating anything. I went to the gym, And I was creating myself. I was building upon myself. I was sculpting myself and I was realizing the possibilities that I could acquire. And through that expression, depression, feeling weak, feeling powerless was gone. Because I had something. I was empowering myself. You know, I feel like a lot of people are withholding themselves from expressing themselves through, whether it's, and it doesn't even have to be art. You know, I think kind of art is almost overrated at this point. You know, there are so many other ways you can express yourself.
Very true. Mm-hmm. I didn't know if you had a time limit or anything of how long you could go for if you needed to be anywhere. I didn't want to intrude, but we're going we're on like a minute 45 or an hour 45 right now.
Yeah.
Do you need to be anywhere or anything?
No, I mean I have a client at 5.
Oh, okay, cool. Let's go to 5. I'm just kidding.
Sure.
But I did want to, you know, we've talked about a bunch of stuff, but I kind of want to talk about what you were saying about when to stop and when is too big and all this kind of stuff. Because obviously you're a fitness fanatic. Like that's what you do. Like you are a trainer.
Yeah.
That's your, you know, your quest to get better. And I think the way that I've heard it put is just like human optimization. Like that's what I want to do. You know, it's like, cause I've gotten to points where I'm like, okay, cool. Like, wow, I feel really great. I deadlifted 315 pounds or whatever. I'm like, that's freaking awesome. Like, that's badass.
Yeah.
What else can I do? You know, and so kind of like branching off and like, oh, like I realizing weaknesses in other areas. Like, oh, wow, yeah, my hamstrings may be like strong now. Like I can deadlift this, but like I'm not very flexible. I'm going to try to like go do yoga or something like that.
Exactly.
You know,
yeah, there's so many
diversify.
Mm-hmm. It goes beyond what you're doing right now. You know, it's like, what can we, like right now as we're talking, what can we perfect and work on right now? We can do posture. We can talk about our breathing. We can eye contact, whatever it may be. I mean, you can get OCD about it, but it's amazing because it's a place to learn, you know? I mean, I'm lifting weight, you know, there's never been a point where I lifted a weight and I'm like, oh, I'm done. I can go home now. I've retired. You know,
I've reached my peak and now it's only downhill from here.
Exactly,
so we're done.
Man. I'm just gonna maintain. I got 40 years to look forward to this. Man, I'm gonna lift the same weight every single day. No, it's just like I'm innovating. I'm innovating. I'm creating something new every single day. I'm going to the gym. I'm pushing myself a little differently than I did before. And I love it. It's just I've never been able to push myself this hard in anything else. And you know, it's kind of weird because it's like. I'm working on myself. It's a physical it's the manifestation of physically working on myself and making a living doing that. And
people can look at that as like vain too, like, oh, he's just self-obsessed. Yeah, dude. And that's the other thing is a lot of people, they're just trying to work out because they're trying to look sexy. Like they're just trying to look physically attractive. They're trying to, you know, all that kind of stuff. They're not really necessarily thinking about how big can I get or how strong. They're just, a lot of people, you know, you hear, especially with females, you hear the word toned a lot. I just want to have toned. I just want to be. It's the worst. I hate it so much. I hate it because I see some of my friends that are trainers and they say it, and I'm like, "What is toned? Toned is not anything. Stop saying toned." Because when a lot of people think of toned, is they're like, "Well, I don't want to be a bodybuilder, but I don't want to be flabby." And you know,
I don't want to go all the way out.
Yeah, they're kind of like, I don't want to go full craziness where I'm, you know, affecting the lifestyle that I enjoy right now and in the gym all day, all of my free time and counting every calorie and macro and all that kind of stuff. But I don't want to be on the couch eating potato chips and ignoring my physical.
Well, you know why they say that?
Life.
They say that because they're afraid of, they secretly want to go there. They want to go to that extreme, but they're afraid to fail. So that's why they're going to be half baked or lukewarm. I mean, I have my female clients and they're just like, I say, we are going to lift weights. There's like cardio, you do that on your own. We're here to resistance train. I'm here to make you stronger. It's like, well, I don't really want to look like a bodybuilder. And it's like, well, so
you won't.
It's like, well, here's the cool thing, you know, I wish it worked like this, but it doesn't. It's like going to college, me tripping into the library and getting my degree. It's if you want to look like these fit, freaky looking women, you got to put some effort into it. You got to put some dedication to it.
It's offensive when they say stuff like that. It's like, you really think that like lifting weights a couple times a week is going to make you look like a gorilla?
God, I wish it did.
Yeah, I was like, look at me. If it was that easy, like, do you think I'm that much of a bitch that I don't lift weights twice a week and I don't look like, like, that's not how it works.
I physically harm myself in the gym to look a certain way. Don't come here with that bullshit saying.
Seriously,
it's true. It's true. It's I say it kindly. I say,
of course.
Don't worry about that. Rest assured, trust in me. I'll get you there. But yeah, it's
also helpful when you can show before and afters from your clients too, and say show them stuff like that. Like, look, this girl's been on this regimen for a year, and she doesn't look like a gorilla. She looks really good.
Yeah,
or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's but it's a process. What you perceive yourself you're gonna look like. I can dream being 220 pounds at 7% body fat, but I have no idea what that's gonna look like until I actually get there. I can imagine it. I can just think about it. And same thing with women with weight loss. I have one client who wants to get down to like 160, and she's working her way down. When we talk about it, it's like, oh, what's it gonna be like? What is it? It's like we don't know. You're gonna know when you get there, and that's already taken care of. Let's focus on today. Mm-hmm. So, no, you just live in the moment.
Yeah. What do you think about people that come and they say, I just want to lose 10 pounds or whatever, stuff like that? Because that's a lot of what people think. They go in spurts to the gym, like, I've been really bad lately. People always want to say that, like, I've been bad lately.
I'm going to punish myself.
I'm a little bad boy. I need to get in the gym, get my ass to the gym.
But
I've been eating some cupcakes. It's been a little bad boy holidays.
It's been my birthday for 3 months.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is people always are like, what's one little thing gonna, they're always like, oh, well, that's the one little, and of course it's great to, treat yourself, every once in a while. Of course you got to treat yourself. You got to give yourself that leeway to enjoy life. Mm-hmm. Yes, of course you can be 5% body fat and never eat ice cream or whatever, but you could also be like 5% body fat and eat ice cream once a week or once in a while or whatever.
It's all about balance. And it's not quick fixes are only going to give you short results.
Yeah.
It's I have a lot of people who come in and it's like, man, I lost weight, but I can't lose this last 10 pounds. And it's like,
what do you mean last 10?
I don't know what that means. I just nod. I'm like, okay, the last 10 pounds to what? And so it's interesting.
I weigh 10 pounds and I can't get down to 0.
Exactly. It's just like, I'm like, it's a perception. It's a numbers game in the outside world. When I look at someone, I'm like, well, you're going to lose 5 pounds, you're going to gain 3 with muscle. It's like, we're going to base on how you actually look.
Exactly.
So, but it's hard because
making their goal not on a number, more of on an appearance or a feeling.
Exactly. And they, every new client comes in, they see a trainer or the gym from the perception they've been received in the past. And so what I do is I basically, I break that mold. And I basically say, this is not really about what they've said, what those people are saying, what those people are doing. It's about your individual journey. It's what you do. Because fitness is relative. Your strength is relative. What you can do is all relative. I can do stuff that you can't do, but you can do stuff that I can't do. Are we fit? Yeah, we're pretty fit. It's relative. And so I just say, you know what? Your weight is relative to someone else. It's not about what that person weighs. It's about what you weigh, and you need to get down to a healthy level. It's the truth. Be healthy. Take care of yourself. Healthy mind, healthy body. That's what it's all about. And does that really matter and it doesn't matter what that looks like. But yet you have the freedom to change the way you look, because that's your personal choice.
Mm-hmm. And going back to the victimhood and all this kind of thing, it's like when you have that mindset of I am Max and I am overweight and that's just how it's going to be, and I'm always going to be struggling with my weight, I'm always going to be trying to fight this uphill battle of keeping weight off and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, with that attitude you probably are, and you can't fault anyone for thinking that way, because everyone's on their own journey. And of course, when you have years and years and years of reinforcement of those ideas, mm-hmm. The thing is we should be glad that it doesn't take the exact same amount of years to reverse that process, because it's amazing how you could eat terribly for 40 years and reverse a lot of that weight gain in like 1 year or 2 years.
It's forgiving. The body's resilient. It's amazing how adaptive it is. Just what I've experienced now. And it's another interesting thing, I trained for years and working hard and failing and persevering and things like that for just mere seconds of my life. When I deadlifted that weight or when I squatted 405, it only took me a few seconds to do. But that one instant was a product of years of work. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting on how it flips, where a single thought can change years of damage. Time is relative. Healing is relative. It's based on you. The more stubborn you are, the more prideful you are, the less willing you're going to experience change. And it's because you're just a block, you're just a square. It's like someone who got out of a bad breakup and they're hard in their heart, and they have this weird perception of women now that they're like cheats and they're only out there to hurt you. Well, you're never going to experience a genuine relationship. You're never going to change. You're never going to have another opinion because you're not willing to take one in.
Mm-hmm. And I've talked about this a million times on the podcast, but it's like, instead of looking to someone else to fill the hole or looking to someone else to be this person that you want, it's like you need to figure out what you need to change in yourself to become the type of person that will attract a person that you want to be in a relationship with, or whatever it might be, or friends too. Because like, if you're like, what's the ideal type of friends you want? Like, I would love to have all my friends driving amazing cars, have amazing families, live in amazing homes. We travel together, we laugh together, we work out together, we have ultimate time freedom and all this stuff. But guess what? I don't have that right now. So none of my friends do. Are there people out there that have those circles of friends? Yes. Mm-hmm. How do you get into those types of circles? You got to become the type of person that one of those people would accept into their circle. So you need to get on that path of, okay, cool. How am I going to be accepted by these people? Well, number one, you got to be likable. You got to be someone that people like being around.
Right.
So you got to shed judgment. You got to shed all these things that are
be genuine,
that are making people avoid you. Mm-hmm. All that kind of stuff. And obviously you can go down that path for 15 minutes. But people don't reverse engineer things like that. They just think, well, my friends are shitty and I'm always going to have shitty friends and I'm this way and I'm in a bad environment.
Yeah. Well, so I tell my clients this, like, so you're this weight, but you want to get down to this weight. How do we get there? Well, you have to eat like your goal weight. So it's like, if you take a millionaire, strip him of all his goods and all his money and throw him in the middle of nowhere, guess what? He's going to be a millionaire because he knows how to get there. It's like, and also like, how do you become a millionaire? Well, do what millionaires do. Invest smartly, save money, do good, take priority, make your bed,
those the little things.
The little things, because the little things create big things.
Mm-hmm. A compound.
Exactly. So it's like, how do I become the best lifter I can ever be? I have to lift like I'm the best. It doesn't matter if I'm not. I'm not saying I am, but I have to respect what I'm doing. I have to go in and take it seriously every single day as if I'm being watched by millions of people. And that is going to create success. You can't just say, well, I'm just going to do mediocre work until I get there. No, you're going to stay where you are throughout the rest of your life. It's only going to give you a mediocre outcome. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like you were mentioning earlier, it's like, we were talking about, audio and video kind of stuff. And it's like, when you buy an expensive camera or something, it kind of gives you that confidence to like create better content,
It does. And actually, what I like about social media so much is, I kind of don't need a fancy camera to produce good content.
Exactly.
I have my phone, I have my iPad, I can just point it, click, I can do something impressive and hopefully that'll be enough. But that gives me familiarity and comfort to hopefully pursue something more expensive and invest more and actually produce better content.
Mm-hmm. And like I've been recently watching a ton of videos about video editing and camera techniques and all this kind of stuff because I'm trying to get better at that stuff. Obviously video is huge. And one thing that I was watching recently was this guy, it was a video called How to Make Your GoPro Footage Look More Cinematic. And like, for example, when we were taking videos the other day working out, I was trying to get like interesting angles and do all this stuff. And a lot of times people, they feel silly treating their iPhone camera, like getting down and getting a weird angle or, all this stuff, because they're just like, it's just my phone. They're not. But if you see like a really good photographer, he's getting in there, he's getting the shot. But you see the camera, and so you're like, oh, that makes sense. He's doing work. Wow, this is a real artist and all that. But then you're just like, I'm just a guy with an iPhone, and so you feel like less than because
you feel silly.
Yeah, you feel silly getting all serious and ducking down or getting the shot or really getting in the action with it because you're just like, I feel dumb. I have the same iPhone that everyone else in America has right now, and they're not doing this thing.
But that's the thing, it's not. Sometimes I'll post something. I'm like, well, I didn't look that great in that shot, or I didn't, I wasn't too happy with what I did. But then I have to realize, I'm not technically the viewer. I'm the creator. My viewer's perception will be completely different. They'll tell me if something's not right. I haven't gotten any feedback yet, but, I can't let my fears of not producing the top quality, whatever that means, because that's relative as well. But it's like, I just have to just be comfortable with it and post it and see what happens because it's content. Sometimes I'll watch really high up there, like meet fitness people post the stupidest things like that's just a giant waste of time, but they love it. The people, their audience loves it. And I was like, that's what they got. That's what they wanted. And guess what? It fills the gap until you can make something better.
Exactly. And like, that's the title of one of the episodes I did recently was Progress, Not Perfection. And I've heard a quote that says, perfection is the enemy of progress. Like, you make something and it's finished and you're like, should I press upload or not? Should I press post or not? Or whatever it might be. And like, for example, I have this, you could say, very mediocre podcasting setup. And I could, every podcast say, hey guys, sorry about the audio. It's not, it's not Joe Rogan or, it's not NPR quality, but it'll do, and like keep on apologizing. And it's like, I'm doing the best with what I have. And I think it's turning out pretty great. And people are always constantly surprised when I show up with this tiny little box and they're like, that's it? Like, you're creating this content with this? Because it's like you said, you've got to eat. Like, if you're fat, you've got to eat like you are your goal weight. If you are unhappy, you've got to act like you would act if you were happy. If you want to be a great podcaster, you got to treat your podcast like you already are a great podcaster, and you could apply that to any situation.
Exactly. Like, it's that, like, I have to treat each client like they're the top tier client that I ever wanted. I have to treat them with respect. I have to treat them with the attention as if I was like training a celebrity. Same thing with your guests. Like, it may be some average Joe. Like, I'm just an average Joe, but yet you've come in here and you've given me a platform to talk to, and we've had great conversation. And you treated me with respect you would with anyone else, even someone who's famous. And then that attention and that respect really shines a new light on that individual, and you really promote that positive atmosphere.
Yeah, I love that, man. We've been talking for a long time. It's been a really good podcast. Like you said, like, I love that I'm able to like give people a platform. So right now, obviously I've already had some personal trainers on my podcast. I've had people talking about fitness and all this kind of stuff. But obviously if they live in the Atlanta area and they want to use your systems, take a minute to just kind of promote yourself or whatever.
Plug.
Or your plug, and just also kind of explain, because every trainer is different, and kind of maybe explain why what your story is of a trainer versus maybe someone else or whatever.
All right. So I guess first of all, most of my Instagram is the best way to contact me for just random people. So my Instagram is Supremus Maximus, one word.
I'll make sure to like link it in the notes.
We'll spell that out. Yeah. And generally, guys, I just, I found joy in lifting. I found joy in fitness. I found a new avenue of life just because of it, because I was expressing myself. And that's basically what I do with every other client of mine. And even if you're not my client, reach out, talk. Let's have this discussion, because I'm at this point where I'm reaching out to random people I don't even know, and they're asking me for advice. And I love it. I love talking to people who are learning, because they're asking the right questions and they're going to get the right answer. And it's just going to create a better community. And so my business is called Maximum Training Systems. I also have an Instagram for that. You can go check it out. And yeah, man, you have a good one.
Cool.
Super easy.
There we go.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, so yeah, if people want to connect with you, you said Instagram DMs is probably the best place. Just easiest.
Yeah, Instagram DMs. Yeah.
Dude, Instagram is so crazy because like so many people run their business off of Instagram.
I have my business on there, but it's it's poverty. It's not doing too well because I'm just not focusing on it. Because, to be honest, I can just link people through my personal account, my brand account, and then just link them to my business. I really don't need that Instagram account because I am my business. But
yeah,
it's so cool because, you're adding an additional, thing, which is pictures, live, like in the moment type of things. I mean, Snapchat is more in the moment, but
Instagram stories now though.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I love Instagram because you provide you're seeing other people's lives.
Yeah, and it's like curated. I feel like it's more serious.
It is. People are taking it way more serious.
People get really serious.
Like I can't. I'm starting to lose attention on Facebook because it's just a big pity party. And Twitter. Unfortunately, I'm not touching Twitter at all.
Twitter is just so sad.
I just did it for dank memes. That's all I did. But I think Instagram is probably my go-to baby.
Yeah, I feel like that too, man. More and more every day. I spend way more time on Instagram than any other platform. And if you're listening to this and not taking advantage of the power of Instagram, and even maybe you're confused by it, dive into it because it is the way of the future of how content is being distributed and shared and shown and how businesses are going to interact with humans and stuff. Mm-hmm. If you're not on there, it's kind of like how in the beginning only young people are on Facebook and now everyone's grandma's on Facebook and it's just a thing that everyone has.
It's a transition.
Instagram is becoming that. The largest demographic of new Instagram profiles are 50-year-old women taking selfies, and they want to follow their kids and all this stuff. And of course the kids are going to migrate to some whatever new cool platform there's going to be. But Instagram, I would encourage everybody to dive into that because I think as far as branding yourself, creating an image, curating the kind of content, Instagram is pretty awesome for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be afraid to share your skill, and don't be afraid to just really don't be afraid to express yourself.
And share stuff that you might suck at or stuff that might not be the best, but put it out there. People will appreciate it.
I have a problem where I'm only really good at lifting, and I've said I'm a master of one. I'm going to be good at lifting, and so things around my other life kind of fall through. So I have to be comfortable that yes, behind the gym, I am a normal person, and I'm a normal Joe, and I'm just like anyone else. So just being comfortable in that is a really important thing as well.
For sure. Well, dude, we oh snap! I was so confused for a second because the recorder, once it hits 2 hours and a couple of minutes, it starts a new recording, and I was like, did we just go for 4 hours? Because I saw 4, but it was 4 minutes. It was the new recording.
No, man, it stopped recording 15 minutes ago.
First time that happened to me, I freaked out a little bit. But yeah. So any other closing stuff? Obviously, like you said, people can reach out to you if they want to ask questions or whatever. But any other last closing, imparting words of wisdom or anything like that? Not to put you on the ball or anything.
No. I guess it's pretty generic, but generally just stay true to yourself. Don't be afraid of having different ideas. Make sure your ideas are underlining with truth and in the end to help others come to a realization. Because if your ideas are coming from a state of fear, you're only going to create fear. And you can't pursue anything in life out of fear. Fear of failure. I couldn't pursue fitness for fear of looking unattractive or not having anything else going on with my life. I had to love myself before I could actually step on the plate and go. So love yourself first, love others, and kick ass. All right.
That was awesome, dude. Cool. Well,
and we out. Dab.
Boom. There you have it, folks. That was a really fun podcast. Obviously, there will be another one because that one was really fun. I really love Max's stories, and I think he has some really interesting opinions about current events and issues, and I feel like we could talk for hours. So if you have any fitness questions or need personal training, make sure to shoot Max a message. I will make sure to have all of his info listed in the show notes that nobody reads, but if you want to find his info, it'll be there. If you like this episode, I think that you would really enjoy episode 18, and that is with my friend Luke Crawford. Obviously, if you made it this far into this episode, you liked it. So go listen to episode 18 with Luke. Luke is an entrepreneur, a photographer, competitive shooter, world traveler, hunter, fighter, political activist, fellow Eagle Scout, and hopefully a future politician. Right now he's actually running for public office in Peachtree Corners, Georgia. So hopefully we will know in a couple of weeks the results of that. But the reason why I suggest that episode is because I feel like this one and Luke's kind of just had a similar feel. Luke was also homeschooled. He kind of take a different route as well. And I also want to point out that Luke's podcast is one of the most downloaded podcasts that I've put out. And I've probably gotten some of the most comments about that episode. So go check it out. Episode 53 is coming up next with my friend Gabby Michelle. I don't actually know what her real last name is since her last name is just Michelle on Facebook. And I've never had to ask her what her last name is. But I'll figure it out before I post the episode. But Gabby's a really special person. She just moved to Atlanta from Puerto Rico earlier this year. And I met her earlier this year, right around that time. And it was right around the time that her father passed away. And Gabby is just like a really interesting person. She's really strong. And she shared a ton of really cool stories. Obviously, Puerto Rico has been in the news a ton recently in the wake of the hurricanes and political drama. So, of course, we talked about that, but we also talked about, just what it's like growing up there and moving to the States. And like I said, she's a really strong woman, had lots of cool stories to tell, and she actually just landed a new job in Seattle, so she's moving soon. So we're going to miss her in Atlanta, but that just means that I'm going to be taking a trip to Seattle to visit her because I've never been to Seattle. But that episode will come out in the next couple days, so stay tuned. If you want to support the podcast, the best way to do that is to go to iTunes. iTunes is the number one place for where people discover podcasts. Go leave me a 5-star review and let me know what you think. I read all the reviews, so if you want to give me some feedback, that's probably the best place to do that. Also, if your friends are talking about podcasts and you're like, oh yeah, I listen to Serial, oh I listen to S-Town, oh I listen to this, I'd really appreciate if you throw the Andrew Deitch podcast out in that conversation. That's super helpful. Obviously, word of mouth is the number one way that podcasts are shared and people listen to new ones. So just do that for me. That'd be really, really meaningful to me. And if you actually are enjoying these episodes, that really means a lot. So if you want to follow me on my social media channels, you can go to my website, andrewdeitch.com. That's Andrew, DEITSCH.com. You can find links to all my social media accounts. That's all I got. Stay sweet, everybody. I really, really appreciate you guys. I mean, this week was incredible, passing 4,000 subscribers and passing 1,000 listeners in a day. That's really, really crazy, and it really means a lot. So thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you guys very soon.
Here we're gonna scratch some lottery tickets and see if we win. You won't know, but we will.